I don't know if anybody heard me.
No, I heard you. Yep. Go
Gotcha.
ahead.
Oh, okay. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I'm one of your co-hosts and co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, Frank Johnson, and I'm too sexy for your party. To my right is Michael Vasquez. He's the Dragon of New York, New York's only true independent journalist, and Dal Grimm. He's fighting the fight, leading the fight for liberty and freedom everywhere, growing an enormous beard, trying to recreate the role of Grizzly Adams.
My hero.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. It's been a very eventful week.
Well,
Definitely been a good week.
Like usual, I have been consciously trying to abstain from watching the news, not because I want to not keep up with things, but what I'm trying to do is isolate myself so only the stories I hear from the public are what I absorb. I'm trying to get a better sense of what the people are paying attention to. So by not looking at the news every day and seeing what's going on, I'm trying to hear what the people are talking about. Because, I mean, we could live in the news bubble and look at every single story and kind of get overwhelmed with everything that's going on all the time. And what do the people really give a shit about versus what they don't? You know, we could sit there... Yeah, we could sit here talking about
housewives of wherever in basketball.
Yeah, well, I just want to know what is affecting the people directly, what they're talking about, and now in my new employment, I'm meeting a lot more of the public on a day-to-day basis, and you could hear what they're talking about. You know, they don't necessarily care about, you know, some politics off in some far-flung country or something that happened in a locality somewhere else. What's affecting them? What's affecting their wallet? Now, given that in mind, Vass, what would you think is something that is most pressing that you've been hearing about?
I don't listen to politics that way. And no one I talk to talks to politics like that.
Well, I think actually, boss, you have done it. It's with the council. A lot of the local news is making headway with people now that they feel like the federal government, even though it's in chaos, is kind of being taken care of.
You're thinking about okay, I know what you're thinking of. The story that you're thinking about is New York City has a program. The law enforcement police department have a program where they gather data about the various gangs, Venezuelan gangs, MS-13, all of the gangs. And they try and figure out patterns, identify individuals who are gang members, their territories, stuff like that. And the New York City Council are trying to, one, end that practice, and then two, give the data to the gangs themselves. So they're literally going to take all the police information, the evidence, and they're going to give it to the gang members because racism. And yeah, that would be a local story, except no one gives a damn.
Yeah.
The news media doesn't give a damn. The average person doesn't know it exists, and they don't care. I care, and I think it's important. And political junkies are paying attention to it. Candidates are paying attention to it. But the mainstream media, the average person, no idea. They don't even know who their city council person is. The only thing people care about that I hear, eggs, too expensive. That's it. I mean, that's a legit reason, but if we're looking at what's going on locally, that's it. Eggs, they're too high.
Yeah, I haven't been hearing much about the egg prices lately, but our egg prices here are substantially less than what you would have in New York City, so it's not as big of a factor. But I think we're starting to get to that, frog in the water situation. We're now going in 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month and a half, where people are starting to pay, an exorbitant amount of money for it, that they're starting to get used to the idea. So they're starting to not bitch about it so much because they know the price isn't going to drop as much. Now, one thing that I know that happened this week, you guys Vass, you have a pulse on this probably. Your congestion pricing, it seems that Donald Trump came in last week and said, I don't want it. it's bad, and then it's gone.
No, it's not.
And Hochul is vowing to take him to court so that she can continue to bilk the people of New York out of millions of dollars every week. What's
According to,
what's
it's
going
here.
on down there with that?
There's congestion. The tax is here. They reduced it from $14 to $9. It exists. It's still here. Trump doesn't like it. Hochul doesn't like Trump. Everyone's still in the same box that they were before. There's
Well,
no net change.
didn't a court come in and say no? The price congestion is illegal. You can't do that, and put a stop to it.
Like that stopped it, and they also said that Supreme Court, biggest court, highest court you can go to, said that New York State's gun laws were unconstitutional, and
Oh,
they
I know they
did
keep
it
doing it,
anyway.
but are they still collecting the money even though they've been told to stop?
I'm not sure if they're still collecting it, although I believe they're collecting the data. But no one's clear on that because no one was sure when they started collecting it.
Yeah.
Well, I know
Now
what did they say that they collected $214 million in the 2 months that it had been initiated, was something to that effect.
They got something like $250,000 the first night, something stupid like that. Yeah, most people have been avoiding it. They've just created traffic and accidents, other parts of the city as everyone tries to get around it. And they also are slowing down traffic, creating traffic jams because people are just driving very slowly as they approach the congestion area. As soon as it hits 901, everyone can go drive through. So they just slowly approach it from about 8:55 up until 901. 6 minutes of traffic going nowhere in Manhattan. It's really horrible.
Well,
There's been nothing positive about this.
yeah, according to the MTA, the congestion price in the first month raised $48.6 million in the very first month.
huh.
And for it to have such a minimal effect on traffic just seems like it's just an extortion scheme.
Oh no,
Is more than
it's having a big impact in terms of traffic. People are trying to drive everywhere to avoid it. The thing is, it's creating problems everywhere else except in that congestion zone. Everyone's avoiding it except for at the end at 9 o'clock it turns off, and so that's when the traffic comes back into that area. And it's been causing, because of this stupid new pattern, it's been causing. Uh, it's supposed to reduce climate change gases. I mean, you're getting more greenhouse gases because people are in traffic everywhere else in New York rather than just being normal traffic pattern. Now you have people who are in deep congestion, deep lines in every other bridge and tunnel and roadway trying to avoid this. They really have solved nothing. And everyone's just as pissed off as they always were. But most people actually are talking about it.
well, we know the best way to fight climate change is to steal money from people. That's what Mother Nature calls for. She calls for a financial sacrifice.
Well, that's the answer to everything for Democrats in elected office. Throw money at it. Every problem, they throw money at it. It never fixes anything, but it does pay their donors. But that's literally their first and pretty much only response to every issue. We'll do a study, we'll throw some money at it, we'll tell you to take another 5 to 10 years to figure out an answer. Someone else's problem. They never fix anything. This has never been about fixing it. This is about raising up money. And why do they need the money? Because every other policy in New York State, from Governor Hochul, and the other Democrat-led, New York's a single-party state. It's all Democrats. And their policies have been so bad that everyone's leaving New York State, so they have to find, and we're literally $400 billion in debt. They need to find somewhere to get money. And since people are leaving, they just increase all the fees.
Their latest scheme from Albany is one of the things that's being talked about in my area, because we have a higher geriatric population, is that the CDPAP is a program that allows family members to hire family members to take care of them in their old age instead of going to an old folks home or a nursing home. Hochul has now designed a way to access $9 billion of that program money by forcing all of the members that are taking care of their parents and being paid by this program to unionize. And so they will now be union members that have to pay union dues, and the union executives are all going to be state employees. So they're going to be part of the state system. So that's another way that she's digging into money that she normally would have no access to. Yeah. So that's what's being talked about in our area. That is that and it's funny. I get into conversations with people, and I'm just like, we need to vote this out in 26. If the midterms don't go with any sort of massive change to stop these people from digging into our wallets, the rest of us are leaving. Straight up, as we're leaving, we're gone. They're gonna find places to go, and we're gonna try and get there, because this is untenable. And my wife actually brought up a good point. This talk about getting rid of the IRS and federal taxes. New York is one of those states where if the federal government decides to abolish taxation for it and go strictly to a tariff, New York is going to be one of those states where they're like, oh, well, you now have extra income because you're not paying income tax to the federal, so we're going to raise your tax rates, and we're going to get that extra money that normally would go to the Fed is now going to go to the state. Aren't you glad? Now we can afford to have those services that you don't use be paid for whatever we want.
Well, you know what? Maybe that might be the absolute best thing to happen. Yep. That might be, because it would completely and finally, for once, rip the mask completely off the face of leftist politics. And then people will actually have to decide, okay, if the federal government could do without it, why can't the state? And if the state is going to go raising all the rates on everybody, you know what? At that point, if you stay in those states as a voter, it's on you. Yeah. It really is going to be to the point where it's on you. I don't want to hear anybody bitch, moaning, and complaining, because you're paying 60% of your income taxes to the state that you live in for the privilege of being spanked every year by living there.
Yeah. Yep. So that's basically the pulse of the populace as it goes for the state. I think people are getting fatigued on the federal front. I honestly do. They love the winning. The majority of people I've talked to like what they're seeing as far as outcomes from the federal landscape. But they're getting to the point where they're just like, okay, we feel the momentum slowing. Like we're expecting JFK files. We're expecting Epstein lists. We're expecting the budget. When they passed the budget yesterday, that actually made a couple of people wake up, and they're like, what the hell are they doing? They just added to the deficit over the next 5 to 10 years. Like, this was not what we wanted. And I'm like, hey, did you reach out? Did you talk to your, in New York, we have mostly Democrats, so that's not going to happen. But for the few Republicans that do represent red counties, did you go to your constituent, as a constituent, did you go to your representative and tell them no?
They didn't even know no? They didn't even know it was up for that. We were about to have negotiations again. No one put it on their clock. No one thought about it, so they had no idea it was coming up.
No, and the representatives, very pointedly did not reach out to their constituents and say, hey, we're having this important budgetary meeting coming up. We want you to know what's in it. How do you want us to vote? They didn't do that.
No, and neither did the news media. The news media didn't talk about it or emphasize it until after the fact, because it was going to go through no matter what. That was always going to go through. They just, they made their complaints, and Democrats, Nancy Pelosi saying Republicans are so bad for the way we're spending. This is the same. We're doing less spending than the Democrats have been doing. They have no problem with spending. They don't care. It's just, Republicans are spending less than Democrats are spending. And the things that Republicans are spending on tend to bring in a better return for the economy than what Democrats spend money on.
Right.
And that's the only real difference in what we're seeing there, but which is why you didn't hear a whole lot about that. But I think that you're right. There's a fatigue. The pace was so high and there was so much. Most people don't follow politics anyway. The first 2 weeks, they were captivated because there was more happening than anyone had ever seen in the last half century or more. Easily, probably the last century. There was more done by one president in 2 weeks than pretty much any president ever done.
If you want to gauge productivity by the amount of engagement a president has with the people asking him questions, it was revealed today that in Obama's entire first 4 years, he answered 121 questions directly from the media.
Mm-hmm.
Biden answered 108 questions directly from the media. Thus far, in Trump's administration, in his term this year, which is only, a month old?
Month and a half.
Month and a half old. He's answered 1,004 questions directly from the media. And they're going to say that the guy's not acting in a transparent manner. And think about that. In 1,004 questions, you would think that if there was something that he did a double take on, or a reversal, or had a position change or something like that, they would have skewered him on it already.
Right.
So it just right now is showing that there is a certain consistency and transparency going on that the American people and the American media do not know how to handle. So I think you have a lot of people right now are just in a certain amount of overload. They're in overload right now. So much is happening so quickly, they can't really absorb it, which is, like I said, which is why I wanted to take a step back and just listen to the things that are resonating with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the one problem is when the mainstream news media, when the news media industry as a whole can't keep up. And, I know in like the stuff that I cover a lot, even my weekly show, when I'm covering it, I have to pick and choose the number of stories that happened in the week. There's just too much data and consequences of the data to really get into this is everything in the week. I have my own set of people that I watch that cover different stuff, different topics than I do for some of the things that I can't keep up with anymore. And I think everyone's gone through that. So
it's a form of shell shock. It really is.
The public can't keep up with that. The general mom and pop can't keep up with it because the media can't keep up with it. Although I think the media has more of an incentive not to.
Yeah.
Because they, a dumber public is easier to lie to. They believe Nancy Pelosi and AOC and Chuck Schumer a lot more when they didn't realize what transparency actually looked like. And now that we have it, people are shocked to find out this is what transparency means. You mean we get to find out how much money is being wasted, that is being poorly spent. These people who don't know how to do their jobs, and yet they've got them forever. This is all the stuff that's been hidden from us as we were promised. Don't worry, Obama, I'm going to be the most transparent president ever. Biden, I'm the most transparent administration that's ever existed. This is transparency. We now have something to compare what their claims of transparency versus the reality. And people weren't ready for it.
It's like being dumped
Well,
in the middle of an X feed. Like if you try to wade through the X feeds right now, it's crazy. Like you just can't. You scroll and you scroll and you scroll and you scroll. You could spend all day on it if you
I'll tell
really try to dig through it.
I'll tell you, Instagram and X have both become uh all right. So imagine like your favorite celebrity just died, and there's like that congregation of fans outside all mourning and crying, and
Yeah,
they can't help themselves. That's what it has become. What it's been. The left is just in a complete total meltdown of. It's just everything that's being done, everything is the end of the world. It's a tragedy, and all the rest. And I can't seem to. I'm like, conservatives complain about policy, liberals concern about personality, and it's like the creepiest of the creepy are all coming out from the woodwork,
yeah,
crying, threatening, doing this and doing that, all the purple hair, pink hair, blue hair, all the other crazies that are coming out of there, that 18 different genders,
yeah,
47 piercings in their face. It's there was a point where like things like Instagram were entertaining.
yeah,
It was mostly funny little videos, people doing stupid tricks and stuff like that.
yeah.
Now it's just like a political slaughterhouse of people just screaming about everything. And for me, it's entertaining. But on the same token, too, there are a lot of very mentally unstable people out there, and they're all calling for the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think they really fully understand what it is that they're calling for. That if and when it comes to pass, that they're going to be in a really bad position, for it.
Right.
And
Well,
I don't think they understand it.
they don't. But then again, this is the same behavior that we see when you have steam escaping, right? This is Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, and X. These are places where people are going and they're just venting. So even though they're calling for like the worst possible outcome, a lot of them are just venting, and that's all that's going to be. And we want that. We want them to vent because it does two things for us. One, it tells us who they are, and two, it also allows them to get that all out of their system so that if push came to shove, they wouldn't do anything. They've already gotten all that
Well,
steam out.
well,
They've been able to vent.
listen, I've always been an opponent of the bullshit, hate crimes, hate language, hate speech code.
Yeah,
It's like, listen, if you got people who hate you, it's better off knowing who they are
right,
than trying to drive them into the shadows where they act covertly, and then you have to investigate when something happens. When you have somebody who's out in the open, all right, now you can keep an eye on them and see what they do.
right.
But to see the vitriol that comes from I mean, how many times are we going to say the peaceful, tolerant left in this country?
You can't
And
say
then you look at their actual behavior. I don't remember a single instance ever where I could think of people that have a conservative mindset, conservative ideology, starting a riot, burning down a city, attacking a police car, attacking innocent civilians, blocking traffic, doing it. I don't remember ever seeing that. I see it
no.
constantly from them, and I'm starting to see a little bit of creep, because all right, you guys know I sell guns. All right,
Yeah,
this is what I do. I sell guns. The amount of pink and purple and blue hair I'm seeing on the other side of that little table that I got
Transaction.
in front of
Yeah.
me,
yeah,
it's increasing.
yeah,
Oh yeah, and it's going to get bigger.
Now granted, they have no clue at all of what it is that they're looking at. They have no clue what it is that they're doing, and we have right of refusal to sell something.
Of course.
There's a laundry list of reasons why that not only according to your before we even get to filing your background check, there's certain qualification questions that we ask and stuff like that that will
Right.
determine whether or not we're going to even proceed with the transaction. There's a lot of people getting denied.
Yeah.
That I can tell you. Now, and
would
it's
admit-
not. It's
let me
it's
guess.
not.
Let me guess. Are they getting denied, some of them, because they think merely owning the gun will somehow convey the capability to use that firearm? Like they think that suddenly they're going to turn into some kind of
Oh no!
sharpshooter, Wild West.
No. I mean, listen, people come in, they buy guns all the time for whatever reason they want to buy it. Some people want to buy a gun just because it's a sense of security. And of course, myself, the other guys behind the counter, we're all of the same cloth. We stress a lot about training and fundamental understanding, and we recommend trainers in schools, and we try to advocate for this as best we can. There's no mandates for it, so we can't say that we are going to disqualify somebody based on their inability or unwillingness to go train. That's not it. You still have a constitutional right, and that's fine. However, there are certain policies that go above and beyond what the federal government mandate from a corporate standpoint and an insurance standpoint. And there are certain things that we've got to be able to weed through the lies and the bullshit
Right.
to determine whether or not somebody is even going to be eligible. Because every time you start a form, if a form gets denied, a form gets denied. If it gets delayed, that gets delayed. That's on the Fed. That's their determination. But if we have to void things, we still have to keep copies. And that all adds to the bureaucracy and the paperwork and everything else. So we've got to try and avoid those things as much as humanly possible. So we've got a lot of qualification questions that we have to ask, and a lot of examining of documents that we have to ask. We had a couple of mask wearers in the other day.
Really?
Yeah. All right. The female of them had a beard bigger than yours.
Holy shit.
All right. No,
Dwarf.
but they got their
Dwarf woman.
masks. Yeah, they have their masks on. They've got those big, what do they call those loops in the ears, gauges?
Yeah, the gauges.
All right, yeah. The male of the two of them have gauges in his ears. One of his ears is gangrenously infected.
Oh.
All right, it's like oozing and whatever. They got tattoos up one side and down the other. Now, this isn't to besmirch tattoos, but usually people with tattoos have a rhyme or a reason to them. These all look like a prison tattoo artist with MS did their artwork for them. With a little touch of palsy thrown in for good measure. They have their masks on, and the guy's mask, I mean, it looked like a Band-Aid on a grizzly bear. Yeah, because you just have this big furry face with this little patch of fabric in the middle. Right? Hands over his identification. Neither of them would comply when I said, in order for me to identify you from your identification, I need to see your face. You have to remove your mask. I cannot, anybody could be behind that mask.
Right.
You have to. Would not sully themselves. Would not even think to contaminate the purity of their bodies by ingesting the same oxygen as those of the Second Amendment community people that are around them. They refuse to take their mask off, screaming that it's their right to own to buy a gun.
Oh, now the 2A matters. Now it matters.
I said, well, it is true. Yes, it is your right. However, you have to be able to identify yourself, and I cannot do that without you, cooperating with this.
Right.
Wouldn't cooperate? Please leave.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Their rules.
Yeah. Then the leftists that have come in, they don't tell you their policy, but you know it.
Right.
They'll come across, yeah.
You just know when somebody comes in with a shirt that says resist, And they get their little Palestinian button on and all the rest of the stuff. And I love Trudeau fucking shit.
Certainly.
And they come in and they talk. They want to buy a gun. They have no idea what calibers are. They have nothing. All they know is, I need to buy a 45. That's all they know.
Really?
Or they need a Glock.
Oh boy.
Well, they need a Glock or a 45. But if you ask them if they want a 45 caliber Glock, they don't know what that means. But that's where they are. And you listen to, and then you go through the paperwork with them,
Right.
and you've got 24 questions on your 4473 that you've got to answer correctly in order to even be considered to move to the next step, where the federal government will actually run your information. All right. These are self-disqualifying questions that they ask about immigration status, your military history, your question of this, that. We've had 3 people self-deny because they've renounced their U.S. citizenship.
Oops.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it is? The left, many on the left, believe the lies that they have been told by the news media. And we know the news media lies to us on a regular basis. We've caught them over and over and over again. It's part of the reason why Reid got fired. And they believe these stories that said, oh, it's just so easy. There's so many loopholes to get a firearm. They have this impression in their mind very often, at least in speaking to me. You may be seeing this, Frank, I don't know. But they seem to always have this impression where it's like, oh, yeah, they're just going to throw me a gun. I'm just going to walk in, give them some money, I'll get a gun and walk on out. They think it's like there's little to no paperwork. It's just the Wild West. And it's nothing like the reality that we've consistently said is what we have to deal with. And they don't realize there's such a burden and barricade that's been put up, especially in certain states like New York or California. Such a big hurdle has been put in front of people to stop them from being able to exercise their rights. And now that they're trying to do it, they're like, wait a minute, this is a problem. It's like, yeah, we've always thought so too, but that's the law you voted for, so you got to do it now too.
Well, my favorite self-disqualifier from the last couple of weeks was the guy who came in with the "Believe Women" T-shirt, and when he got to the question about have you ever been convicted of any domestic violence charges, and he answered yes, and he sorry, you don't get a gun now. So that was one that I thought was humorous. And listen, we have a lot of people that are middle of the road. All right, a lot of people that are middle of the road. They see it. They are not going to have such a complete rosy disposition about everything. They would like the world to be a certain way, but they see it for what it is.
Yeah.
So there's a little hint of realism there for them, and they have to understand that, okay, while you can sing Kumbaya to the guy who's mugging you, it doesn't mean it's going to stop him. That you still need to defend yourself. And they understand that, and they start coming around, and then you start seeing people have conversations. We get to the point where, like, there's 5 guys behind the counter on a good day, and there's 30 people in front of us, and we can only handle one person at a time because we have to wait for their documentation to be processed. And there's only a certain amount of computers that we can process at one time. So you'll see a lot of people just talking amongst themselves. They're talking guns, they're talking bullets, they're looking for this. And you will watch as customers help one another. Try and find items, or they'll ask for advice. They'll ask one another because they find themselves to be within a community of people that have a certain mindset and a certain frame of reference. Right. And you start seeing people that when you look at them, you say, I know that's a school teacher. I know that it's this type of person. I know it's that type of you can see certain telltale signs on things. and you can see political persuasions on people, and you start to see a little bit of a transformation
Yeah.
in certain people, and people come out and will say, I can't believe how helpful everybody's been. I can't believe how much knowledge that people have. That's great that people were able to assist me. And you start seeing that little metamorphosis of perception take place in people's mind. Where here's this guy standing at the counter. He's 60 years old with a big long white beard, got tattoos up both sides. Then the other got a biker jacket on. He's a youth minister who happens to carry guns and teach self-defense. And
Yeah.
people think, oh my God, there's a big burly scary guy over there, and he's exactly the guy that you would give your keys to your house to babysit your pets while you go on vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of community that exists. Seeing that transformation is so cool to see it, because it gives a little bit of a glimpse of maybe not all hope is lost. That maybe there is a little bit of hope for some people, because the people that don't want to even know are never going to come in that place.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
see, that's kind of like, it brings me back to transparency, but we could also look at it from the racism point of view as well, because it's both. And it's in terms of transparency, these are people who are finally finding out what really is the process, who really are these gun owners, who are the people who are selling the firearms, and getting to engage with them and to recognize that, yeah, that's just, we're talking about school teachers, we're talking about nurses, we're talking about single moms or moms with, married wives, housewives, and such. That these are real people that they probably didn't even realize, in some cases, were firearm owners, and suddenly here they are, and are far more knowledgeable and like true gun nuts. Like, they didn't know that their dental assistant that was working on their teeth last week is a supreme gun nut. They just thought she was a little nurse. So there's that transparency, very much like what we're seeing in the government. People didn't know what transparency actually was. They only know what they were told. That many people only know what they were told about firearms and firearm ownership. They've never actually had real contact with that. And then it's also in this terms of like with racism. What's the easiest way, best way to deal with someone who's a racist? Well, that's to actually confront them, to actually have them in front of people. And I've had this happen in my life several times where I'm like, okay, just happened to be dealing with and had to deal with white racists who were like, oh, I hate your guts. Really? Why? You literally met me and known me for about 30 seconds. Why? What have I done to you? I grew up 5 states away from you. You've never seen me before except for these first 30 seconds. What I got to do with you? Why do you hate me? And when you have to actually confront your lack of knowledge, you have the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
Not everyone does, but some do. And that's when things get better. That's how we get better. We see the transparency. Now we can have a better government. We have people who are getting into seeing the transparency about what it is to be a firearm owner. Well, that helps us in making sure everyone has the ability to have the Second Amendment exercised, to exercise the Second Amendment if they want to. Same thing with race. We kill racism. It's all the same process. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it's exposing into sunlight, basically. It helps you actually find the common ground necessary to have discourse as opposed to arguing with one another. And that we almost had that. We had it almost nailed in the 90s.
Well, we were there in the 90s. Everyone was. That's what I grew up with.
I mean, I couldn't believe when Obama started his policies and stuff, and I'm watching racism come back, and I'm like, we had it dead. What are you doing? he's like, well, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna make segregation happen again because it's a wealth of change and hope and stuff. Like, no, you're going backwards. What are you
No,
doing?
they never let it go. I mean, you had the Al Sharpton, you had uh, Charles Rangel and Maxine Waters. You
Al,
had race
go ahead.
baiters
Yeah,
that were always trading on racial politics because that's all they have. And it is effective. It raises a lot of money. But the problem is it's very destructive because it's so negative. It's so divisive.
yeah.
But they were in the minority, just like the race. The people who traded on race were just like the racists, like the KKK. Both of those were just dying off. They were disappearing. They were almost gone for the same reason. No one needed them. No one cared about either side. The people who want to agitate with race and the ones who are like the hyper racist, no one cared about them. They were gone. They were a dying breed. But you have people like Reverend Al Sharpton who helped keep pushing it through, try to keep it alive because he was making a ton of money off of it. A couple of politicians were making a ton of money off of it, and they were helping to keep it alive. And then you got Obama. And Obama brought it back. And then you get Joy Reid. Go ahead.
And speaking of that pig Al Sharpton, yeah, he's a pig. He is a disgusting, race-baiting, racist pile of shit. I say it once, I don't care. Come sue me, Al. You're a piece of shit. Anyway, apparently Hochul ain't too happy with your mayor down there and wants to look at ways of removing him from office. And apparently last week summoned Al Sharpton.
Yeah.
To come to her Midtown New York office so they could discuss how to get rid of Mayor Adams. What the fuck does Al Sharpton have anything to do about deciding whether or not somebody leads the city who was duly elected?
Because he has a way of raising money and donating. That's why.
No. It's worse of a reason than that. That would have actually been something at least.
Oh, really? It's the worst reason.
The worst reason is he's black.
Yeah.
No, I'm dead on serious. The only reason Kathy Hochul needs cover.
Right.
Eric Adams is black. And it happens to be Black History Month. But even without that, he's a black mayor. He's a practical progressive, according to his own terms. She, as a white woman, can't fire him overnight. Can't do it. She has to have a justification. She has to get an okay to fire or punish a black man. Otherwise, Eric Adams could just turn around and go, "You're a racist." And now she instantly loses all of her support with all the Democrats, all the progressives. She's out, she doesn't even need to run. She'll be drum out. So she gets Al Sharpton. And if Al Sharpton, the voice of Black America, never had an election, never run for an elected office, no one gave him.
He ran for president.
No, that was Jesse Jackson.
No, Al Sharpton ran for president.
I remember Jesse Jackson running. When did Al Sharpton run?
He ran for president the election cycle prior to Obama running for the first time.
Oh, that wasn't real. But okay, fair enough.
No, but he did run. But let me ask you. Marshall isn't here, so I can't ask him the constitutionality of it. But is there anything in New York that stipulates that the governor has the right to remove a mayor without any sort of due process, without the special election or a recall?
Not without.
She has the ability to go in and say to the assembly, "I want this guy fired, so fire him," overturning the will of 20 million Americans.
Complicated. She can't just take him out, no. But she can, and she has, changed all of his staffing, All of his staffers are now her staffers. They're her people. She's isolated him, and she is limiting some of his, basically almost
Well,
all his powers as mayor.
how can she change his staff? They don't work for the state, they work for the city.
Okay, all of his staff left because of all the pressure that's been on him by Democrats last year. His staff have been leaving, and she has been instituting, with the support of the city council, her own choices of people to replace him. Like we just had 4, what do you call it, assistant mayors. 4 of them resigned on the same day.
Okay,
Politics.
but they serve at the pleasure of the mayor.
Kind of.
Not really. So I found
the governor can institute and put them in. Yes.
I found the city charter for New York City, and Section 9 says that the mayor may be removed from office by the governor upon charges. So she'd have to convict him of something.
Yes.
Here, let me bring that up for you.
I got it.
You said Al Sharpton, and this is new. This is something else. Let me
that's
the right screen here.
Yeah.
Let me get the correct screen. And right here. Here we go.
Well, again, if charges were to be brought up, he would have to be charged and convicted the same way any other impeachment would go, in order for her to go. And then she would have to appoint an interim mayor, and then there would need to be a special election.
Yes, and everyone's been expecting a special election, although he can be. Charges doesn't mean conviction. Also, the city council can strip him. There are stipulations that allow that to happen. There's a couple of ways she can do it.
There we go.
One of the things is there's also the New York State ethics violation. It's any elected officer who has violated their ethical code of conduct and done something that is unbecoming of an officer of New York State, or otherwise impedes the citizens, their constituents, then they can be removed. I forgot the statute that says that, but yes, there is a statute that would allow that. So she has.
When did they get to her?
She could always do it. She could say that.
No. When is she going to be removed?
Yeah, for ethics violations.
Well, no one. There's a lot of people who should have been removed for that, but it's a matter of who's going to dare arrest them and try and bring them in charges against that. No
citizens arrest.
You could try it, but you'll never get a prosecutor who will actually go to court with it.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Now this
you
says
can make the arrest. No DA is going to follow through and prosecute that. So it's useless.
Now the charter, Section 9, doesn't say anything about due process. It just says that he can be removed once he's been heard for his defense. He doesn't have to be convicted. He just has to have charges brought up and served to him.
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to Tammany Hall and some of the corruption in New York State. So everyone knew that she can do this.
Yeah.
Question isn't that can she do it? And there are people lining up, including Andrew Cuomo, who are lining up to run, especially if there's a special election. A lot of people want that.
Yeah.
Because that'll be easier to run in than an actual mayoral race.
Right. Because nobody will show up. The people that are paid to show up will show up to vote. And then everybody else will wake up the next morning and be like, oh, Cuomo's our mayor? Oh, shit.
No, it's less expensive to run in a special election, different rules in terms of the voting on a special election. There's a few things. So everyone wants that, but she didn't think she could get away with it without, she needed to have an explicit okay, and actually have Al Sharpton come out and say, no, I told her to fire Eric.
Yeah.
She needed that. that vindication, that justification from a black leader.
Well, apparently he didn't give her the golden go ahead. So
No,
So that won't
because
happen.
he's more shrewd than she is. He's not gonna.
Mhm.
He's not going to attack another black man. Unless there's a raging giant R next to his last name.
no, not even then. Not even then. Not under any. You need to do something that is affecting his pocket in a really bad way before he would do that, because the potential of the backlash, he doesn't deal with that anymore. He doesn't do anything unless he's getting paid, and he has to get paid a lot, and he's not going to take the risk
Yeah.
because he has a base of voters. He knows he can get them to show up anywhere because he's the black leader. And anything that interferes with that, he's not going to say yes. So the fact that she called him in, yes, she needed to do that. I'm sure he got paid for it, but he was never going to say yes, because that would affect, going forward, some of the people who follow Al Sharpton, and therefore he would be less, he would make less money. He would have less power because he turned on a black man. Doesn't matter the reason why. He turned on a black man. Therefore, he's
Black
being skin folk, but not kinfolk, as they like to say.
Maybe they'll roll Jesse in
Well,
the next one.
I know Delgado's not going to get any favors because he's going to be trying to run against her in 26. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, Delgado will lose. Delgado he doesn't care. He didn't care when he was a member of Congress in the New York 19th district, and he didn't care about constituents then. And he left and ran away because he didn't want to actually have to work hard in an election. So when he had the difficult race with Molinaro, he ran away, took the easy job to be lieutenant governor under Kathy Hochul, where he had zero responsibility and had to do nothing. He just collects paycheck, just like she used to. And really, when was the last time you heard Antonio Delgado's name? Was the day that he said, yes, I'll be lieutenant governor. And you have not heard about him again until now, when he says, I think I'll run for governor, because he thinks he's more important than he is, and he's just a coward.
He wants to depose the Empress and become Emperor of New York.
She's damaged goods, and he knows, everyone knows it, and she's on her way out.
All right, next.
So I was going to say the latest thing when you brought up Al Sharpton is this DEI boycott plan of his. So come February 28th, he's calling for a nationwide blackout on Friday, February 28th for 24 hours.
It's not his.
Oh, it's not?
No.
He's got his name at the top.
No, it's been going around for longer than Al Sharpton. It is a progressive movement thing. And realistically, and I actually just did a video on it earlier today, because I've been seeing it for about 3 days now. 3 days. It just came out this week, this idea that they're going to have a total economic shutdown. You buy nothing. And we will show the Trumpers and Republicans and MAGA, we'll show the world that we're powerful. Crap. It's crap. It's stupid. All this is Democrats and progressives getting a count on how much power they actually still have. That's it. No one's going to be impressed. They're asking these people to go around and harm their own communities. Yeah, don't go to the restaurant, the waitress, the bartenders, the hair cutters, the grocery store. Don't give any of them any of your money because they desperately need it. That's what keeps them alive.
Think of how stupid, how absolutely stupid the whole premise behind this is. Don't go shopping. Don't buy stuff. Don't do this. Okay, so on a normal day, Right. So on a normal day, somebody gets up, they have breakfast, they get dressed, they take a shower, they do whatever, they go to work, they have lunch, they come home, they have dinner with their family, they do whatever they do, right?
Right.
You on a normal day spend X amount of dollars on a normal
Mhm.
day. What they're telling you is don't spend any money on that day.
Right.
But what is your routine? You get up, you take a shower, you get dressed, you have breakfast, you go to work, you get lunch, you come home, you get dinner,
Oh
you
yeah,
spend time
they're
with your
plenty
family.
smart.
You're still going to consume everything that you consume on a normal basis. The only difference is instead of buying it that day, you bought it the day before, or you're buying it the day after to replace what you consumed. You're still going to turn your electric on. You're still going to run your water. You're still going to drive your car. You're still going to use and consume everything that you would normally consume on a regular day, which means you have to replace or replenish it, which
Right.
means what you don't spend on Friday, you're spending on Saturday. Oh, don't
Yeah.
get a haircut? If you get a haircut once every 3 months
Mhm.
and they tell you don't go get a haircut, are you going to go 6 months between haircuts? No. You're going to go get your haircut the following weekend. You're still going to spend your money. All you're doing is taking one day when you don't spend it, and the stores say, "Oh my God, we lost $500,000 in revenue today," but tomorrow they had $1 million in revenue because it's the $5 million they lost the day before being spent the next day. They're
Right.
still gonna spend the fucking money.
No, I understand, and of course, it doesn't make any logical sense. It's not about that. See, the rank and file
No, it's about a
people on Twitter.
feeling of empowerment.
No,
We're empowered.
it's not about that.
Oh,
No,
the
that's what
fuck
they're
out of here.
selling it. That's how they're selling it to the rank and file. That's for all the people who actually obey and do it. And that's why they're selling it to them on this. Yeah, you're going to be impactful. No one cares. No one cares. What it's about is it's a test. They're testing the obedience of the Democrats and progressives out there. How many obedient little peons do they have that don't think anything through? That don't,
Well,
they just do what they're told. That's
well,
what
they
this
don't.
is about.
Surprised.
They don't even have to demonstrate their obedience because all they got to do is look at all the vaccines. All right, they know they have the obedience of the people that don't use their friggin' mind for anything. This is a matter of them trying to make them feel like they're empowered and emboldened because they've got nothing right now.
I don't, I don't,
They have no political sway, they have no political standing, they have no voice. They feel this is them saying, "We're going to give you that little taste of power. We're going to power to the people.
no,
We're coming to reclaim our crown." The
I don't think
frig
that's
out
it.
of here with your
I
bullshit.
think that's the way they sell it to the public. But the
And
leadership, the people who put this together, this is a test on how much power do they have right now in the under the Trump administration, with Trump having 54% approval ratings, with 62% of America agreeing with some, well, roughly 50,
well,
60% of America agreeing with various policies that he's put forth already. They're trying to see how much money do they need for 2026? How much power do they have to try and put forth a real battle against Trump at this moment? They're gauging the politics of the second half of this year and going into 2026. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the rank and file people or whether or not they
well,
buy anything. They don't care.
well, it's a pretty stupid experiment because there's no one that actually gauges the day-to-day consumption levels of an entire nation. Not every single day. Not every store calls up and says, "Oh, Mister
No,
Pollster,
no.
here's what we made today." It's
I
bullshit.
guarantee
It's
you what.
just
No, they don't need an exact number. What
no.
New
They're
York
gonna
needs-
create. They'll create their own numbers and say our daily protests had a crippling effect on the American economy. We showed them. Woo, get the hell out of here. You don't want to
yeah.
know. You want to know the kind of solidarity this is. It pales in comparison to the solidarity that I heard about earlier today.
Yeah.
I heard an amazing tale of self-sacrifice brought on by love and loyalty. It was amazing. It seems that race baiting lunatic Joy Reid finally was fired from her very valuable show, the show that she provided a real value. She was fired from MSNBC for her very valuable show. And in a moment of unimaginable clarity and loyalty, a woman who identifies Joy Reid as her mentor in the infotainment business, Rachel Maddow, has just announced that in solidarity, she's quitting her show.
Oh, such bravery!
Rachel Maddow is gone.
She is going to. Well, this is what I heard. I have a very well-placed source at MSNBC that said Rachel Maddow, after going on a half-hour-long crying tirade on her show yesterday, where she had to hand the duties of production over to the producer so she could compose herself, is so betrayed by the fact that the racist, misogynistic leaders at MSNBC decided that they were going to fire Joy Reid because she has abysmal ratings, has said, I am so annoyed that my mentor, my leader, my icon of infotainment has been fired, that I, Rachel Maddow, am leaving my show. I am canceling my contract and I'm leaving my show effective this Friday. Set your VCRs up so you can record the last episode.
Okay.
That's what's happening.
I have yet to hear that anywhere.
You know why?
If it happens, I would be happy to see Rachel Maddow gone. Because
I would listen, I would too.
No, Joy Reid is an absolute racist.
Right. Well, so is Rachel Maddow.
Huh?
So is Rachel Maddow.
I don't know if Rachel...
She's a pig. She's disgusting.
Okay, I've never heard her say that you should give up your family for the whims of Joy Reid.
Oh no, but here's the crux of the story. It didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. It's not a true story. Do you know why it's not a true story? Because fuck Joy Reid. Those are the words that come from people like Rachel Maddow when it comes to their multi-million-dollar contracts. Fuck Joy Reid. That's what it means to her. It means that there's more money for her to bid on for her next contract, considering they all just recently got a pay cut. You see, loyalty among the leftists doesn't exist. She doesn't care that Joy Reid got fired. She doesn't care that the racist misogynists at MSNBC fired Joy Reid. She doesn't care, but it gives her the opportunity to make herself look like she cares and cry. Well, listen, Rachel, if you were a friend of Joy Reid, and if she was your mentor, your guide spirit, as you called her, or something along those lines, why didn't you take it upon yourself to quit and say, as a protest for the way that my friend is being treated and the way that this nearly bald-headed black woman is being treated, I'm going to quit in solidarity. You know why, Rachel? Because you're a phony and you're a fake and you have no loyalty to anyone but yourself.
Well, at the end of the day.
Isn't that correct? Right. Yeah, it has nothing to do with it. Now, the fact that, I mean, we've had people walk away from very lucrative contracts and stuff like that because they said this isn't right. Ethically, it's not right and stuff like that. And they make their point and they go about it.
Walked away from a $50 million.
Yeah. So where's Rachel Maddow? Why is it the only time that any of these leftist talking heads actually finally leave their job is when their ratings are in the negative? It was like people actually not watching the shows. Like, it's not a matter of how many people did. It's easier to count the people that didn't.
It's not even that the people stop watching them; they get fired because Joy Reid
that's the only fired. Right. The only way we get rid of them.
Don Lemon got fired they
But
get
where is
picked off.
the loyalty? Where all of these talking heads on the left and many on the right, when like Tucker Carlson got fired and stuff like that, you saw a lot of them, jump right up and say, "Oh, I'll take that time slot." Where is the loyalty among any of these people?
It doesn't exist because the whole MSM is based around status. It's all about status. If I can get this time slot, all of a sudden I become very important, and they believe that. When really it doesn't mean a thing if you don't have any kind of character to back it up.
Well, think about, and great example. Don Lemon thought that he was actually an important individual and respected. Then he got fired, and nobody watches him. No one cares. No one talks about him. Tucker Carlson, he got fired. He went off. He created his own business. Same thing like what we see with Don Lemon. People still talk about Tucker. Tucker still gets to break news. He's still doing his job. And he gets probably as much, if not more, than what he was making with Fox News.
Right.
On his own terms.
Yep.
Well,
but Don Lemon isn't.
Well,
and Joy Reid won't.
Right. Well. Here's a message for Joy Reid, who said my show had value. Had real value. Joy, enter the public marketplace, figure out a subscription service for you to host a 1-hour show that you can broadcast from your own home, kind of like the way that we do here, and have people pay $1.99 an episode to hear your rambling, bumbling bullshit, and then you'll determine for yourself whether or not your show actually has value. It's called the free market principles. You can look it up and see if it works for you. Now, as far as Rachel Maddow is concerned, she's making $25 million for a 5-year contract. So it's a $5 million a year contract versus the $20 million plus a year that MP5 guy, thought it might have been. Now, listen, it's true. Yeah, it's a lot of money to walk away from. Yeah, granted. How much money does she have already?
Yeah,
that's sitting there in the bank. She's got enough money to live 5 lifetimes over and never have to worry about the price of eggs. She can do whatever she wants.
Joy Reid was making about $3 million. Her contract was
but we're talking about Maddow. The fact is, if Maddow had any value, she could have made a power move and said, "Well, if Joy Reid's going, I'm going." Yeah. Maybe we'll do the Reid Maddow hour and bring her on as a co-host.
She wouldn't do that though,
and you get 2 for 1. No, because they're all self-serving pieces of garbage. All of these people that talk a great game about sacrifice and love and compassion, but when their mentor, their best friend, gets fired, fuck them. That's the end of the day. So when they sit there and they talk about how much they hate Donald Trump and how much they hate conservatives and how much they hate Republicans because they all hate you, remember how much they love their friends, that they're willing to stand by and watch them get slaughtered while they reap the rewards. So you got to ask yourself, when they say, "Oh, these billionaires are working for the American people," I don't think so. Well, who are you working for? Because you obviously have no solidarity to the people that you work with. So how much compassion do you have to those meager peons that are actually watching your show? You have less compassion for them. If you did, you would understand the folly of your politics. But you don't, because all you want is money, power, and popularity. That's it.
Yeah, but that's what we see in all of the, more so in the left politics. In news media in general, yes, but more so on the left, where they're more than willing to sacrifice one of their own, to throw them under a bus, to ignore them completely, if it means that they get to advance either the agenda and or themselves. And we see this all the time. Patrice Cullors, as an example, who is the founder of BLM, wasn't doing BLM. I mean, she says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to introduce black people to communism." But it was about her getting 6 mansions and walking away, and didn't give a damn if anyone else got helped or not. It was about Sean White. who was able. It was about him getting his $100,000, no, $40,000 dog.
Yeah.
That's he got.
Oh my
He's
God.
not even black. He took the money and ran with it and got himself a $40,000 dog plus a house. But he doesn't care about feeding anyone, regardless of the color of their skin. They don't care. Rachel Maddow doesn't care about Joy Reid any further than Joy Reid can get her ratings. As long as Joy Reid, she could spout anything racist she wanted to, and as long as it added in ratings for Rachel Maddow and for the channel and helped everybody make a little bit more money, they let her spout her racist, evil bile. And the second that she was no longer productive, they threw her away. And we see that in all of the left-leaning politics. The second you aren't a benefit to the issue or to the ability to raise money for that issue, then you're gone. They throw people under a bus every single time.
So here's something interesting too about Rachel Maddow. So when Maddow spouted off about the MSNBC and the owners there, how much of it do you suppose was not about Joy Reid, but about the fact that they're cutting her staff? They're basically whittling down. Yeah, they're whittling down her staff to like a skeleton crew.
Doesn't matter. She's only doing
because. Well, I'm just saying because she's only her current show is only good for the first 100 days of Trump's office, and then after that, she's on the chopping block.
Yeah, but she only works a day a week.
Oh, I know, but that doesn't matter. If she's making $5 million a year working one day,
they're not getting rid of her. She is the cornerstone. She's probably the only one of their crew of people that has actually got any kind of talent. And to be fair, she's not stupid. She may say stupid things. She may lie to the American people's face for 3 years in a row, saying that there's Russia collusion every day, and have on every other day Adam Schiff saying there's evidence of Russia collusion that never appears and then never apologize for it. She may do those kinds of things, but they're not going to get rid of her because she's one of the few people on the left that actually has a following. People actually follow her because she's actually intelligent when she isn't busy lying. And that's why
you have to be fairly intelligent to lie. So I guess,
or lie consistently anyway, especially over that many days. And that's why I put her on the same level as with Tucker, in that he's legitimately had a following. It's not plug into the time slot and Insta star. There's a lot of people who you can say that for. You can't say that about Megyn Kelly. You can't say that about Tucker Carlson. You can't say that about Rachel Maddow. Those are the three people nowadays that you really can't say that about. Everyone else, pretty much interchangeable.
Yeah.
If you put me on at 7:00 on CNN, I will be a megastar too. Anyone will be. Anyone will be. But it's the person who can leave there, who can do something else and still be a megastar. That's important.
Yeah.
But when you have that kind of a platform, you would think, right, Rachel Maddow would have said something better and more important than Joy Reid was such a, she's black. She's a woman.
Yeah.
Think about it. The best things that she could say about Joy Reid were she's black, she's a woman. Who cares?
If she's very aerodynamic.
Well, yeah.
She's my sister from another mister.
But if she was actually qualified, if she had any genuine talent, I'm talking about Joy Reid.
Yeah.
Then Rachel Maddow should have been able to list that, or to list all of her great accomplishments besides calling people she didn't like racist. Okay, and then what else did she do? What was her great journalistic achievement? She called a bunch of people she didn't like racist. God, yeah. We know. What else did she do? None of that was mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so that just tells you how empty and vapid and useless Joy Reid is. And she is an blatant, absolute racist. She is one of the most racist people. I have literally met KKK members that are less racist than Joy Reid. I swear to God. I have literally met members of the KKK that were less racist than Joy Reid is. And that's really sad. So I have no pity for her being gone. And hopefully the news industry will improve. And I hope that Rachel Maddow gets so angry that she walks away. That would be one of the best things for American news.
Well, my whole thing was just being facetious. It was just trying to point out the
you had me going.
the absolute hypocrisy of people on that side of the argument when they talk about how much they love and care about everybody, and the whole kumbaya bullshit. And when it all comes down to it, they're in it for themselves. They're not in it for the people. They're phonies. Every friggin' one of them is just another charlatan that says what they need to say. They put out the raw meat so that the few in their audience that actually watch them will support them. That's it. Listen, Joy Reid can, drop a toaster in her bathtub tomorrow, and all it would mean is that there's another vacancy in an apartment in New York City someplace. That's all it means. She would be forgotten about by her coworkers, just like they never knew her at all. Yeah. And that goes for any one of them.
Yeah. And that's a sad thing when you think about it, because one of the cornerstones of our nation is that if you are for liberty first principles, then you value everyone that contributes to that. So if they actually had something that worth standing on, you would think that their community would be tighter, but it's not.
Think about this for a minute. Rush has been gone for 2.5 years now.
Right.
All right. Rush has been gone for 2.5 years. I believe it's that long. How long ago did Rush Limbaugh?
Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, Rush Limbaugh. Oh,
yeah, not Russia.
I think
Rush
you said
Limbaugh.
Russia.
No.
Rush has been around. Around.
Yeah. Limbaugh's been gone for a long time.
About 2.5
years. 2.5 years.
All right. People still go and they celebrate the man. Yes. They celebrate what he said, and they still say that a lot of Trump's victory this time around had a lot to do with Rush. They still credit him for it. There's still people that try to emulate him. There's still people that recall his name, that they quote him constantly. I see people still calling themselves Ditto heads walking around from back when he had his TV show on. Mm-hmm. Do you have anybody out there that's still regaling the great times of Chris Matthews? And he's not dead.
No, he's not.
No, he just got fired.
Yeah.
He got fired, and nobody gives a shit because he means nothing. He meant nothing to the movement except at the time, where the people on our side of the aisle, when we have somebody that makes an impression on us, they're doing it not in a way where it's out of hatred or volatility, but it's out of common sense. It's about facts. It's about really analyzing the situation and saying, this is what's going on. This is the truth. And our figureheads that we still espouse as being the great ones, they live on.
Right.
And even long after death, we still regale them. And here we got the left. Bobby Kennedy Jr. has been singing the same song for 40 years in the public life, but because he's aligned himself with a president who wants the same things, he's now a pariah.
Yeah.
There is no loyalty. Yeah. There is no loyalty on the left. They don't care. They will cut themselves up and chew themselves up quicker than anything else, because it really is true. Whoever feeds the alligator last winds up on the menu. And they are nothing but cannibals on that side. So when you look and you parse it out and say how much of what they say is because they care about America or they care about its citizens, they don't. They want people to be shackled. I mean, I sat there and I watched, what's that? the Congresswoman Papaya, whatever the hell her name is. What the hell
Crockett
her name is? No. The she's
from
I
from
know who you're talking
Hawaii.
about. Part of the squad.
you know
I
who
know
I'm
who you're talking
talking about.
Yeah.
She's over there talking about
Oh, Jayapal.
Yes.
yeah,
Jayapal. Yeah.
Papaya, whatever her name is. Yeah, she's over there talking about how we're going to feel the ramifications of these deportations when we look at our dinner and we realize there's no food there because the people who picked it all got deported. And when we go to our hotel rooms, the hotel rooms are dirty. And when we can't find somebody to mow our grass, this is shit she's saying
I
in
know.
front of Capitol Hill. Listen, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking to
Yeah.
those people that may or may not have legal documented status. If you aspire to anything in your life greater than poverty, the Democrat Party does not want you to succeed. They would rather you live in the shadows, breaking the law and never being able to fully capture the American dream because you came here illegally.
Mhm.
They are happy to have you living in the lowest rung of the level because you're controllable there. They use you there. They're happy to see you be in poverty. They want your children to not have good schools, to not have a good education. The other people who want you to come here legally want you to be able to prosper like every other legal immigrant to the United States.
Yeah.
That is a fact. There are benefits to being an American citizen that you cannot even comprehend until you are part of the American fabric and the American family. You will never attain those blessings if you're living in the shadow. So when people say you have to go back and you have to do things legally, it's not necessarily for America's benefit only, it's for yours as well.
Yeah.
Believe me when I tell you, my grandfather came to the United States when he was 14 years old. Okay, he petitioned to do so. He rode for 6 months on a cargo vessel with nothing in but a suitcase of clothing and an Italian to English dictionary. He raised 13 children in the United States legally, all of whom became successful in their own right because he did it legally. My grandfather lived a long life and a long, proud, happy life, and when he died, an American flag was draped over his casket because he served in our armed forces. This is the kind of thing that we want for all of you who want to come to America. Not just those who they want you to come and pick fruits and pick vegetables and clean hotel rooms.
That's not the
That's
id you think it is.
that's not a power move. A power move is being able to come to the United States and going to school, become a doctor, a lawyer, a police officer, an engineer, an architect, anything that you could possibly imagine for yourself or anyone in your family. But you can't do that being illegal. And that's the difference between us. We want you to prosper and live the American dream, where they want you to be subservient and serve their American dream. That's the difference.
But that's the thing, Frank. A lot of the Democrats are taking advantage of the fact that these people have never, just being at the lowest rung, being American, being in poverty or near poverty in America is literally dozens, if not hundreds of times a higher quality of life than anything that they have lived through before. And then if you add in the extremely wasteful, stupid spending that we have seen under the Biden-Harris administration, $73,000 per individual illegal alien in New York City alone, then they're happy to do that because it's wealth beyond their expectations, quality of life beyond their ever expectation. And the Democrats take advantage of that. You're right. They're taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
And that's why it sounds so harsh when we say, no, just follow the law.
Right.
Follow, because I understand they're looking at the instant gratification. They're looking at the instant, right this second. It doesn't get better than this, as opposed to we're talking about the long term, and we will make this nation better for everyone. There can be room for more. You can come. No one, no Republican, no conservative is saying, oh, you can't come to America. Everyone's saying, come here legally.
Yep.
No one's saying you can't show up. People are saying show up legally, because there's a big difference between the two. Because if you show up illegally, well, if you destroyed the infrastructure, you wasted our money, caused inflation, and you raised up anger and animosity amongst the people, well, then nobody wins, because you're destroying the very thing that is America that you want in the first place, that we want in the first place.
Right.
Long term, the answer from the Democrats will be antithetical to America itself. And that's the scary part, because no one ever really gets a chance to talk about that.
Yeah, that, and also if you come legally, you're coming here with the expectation of becoming an American, and what that means is you're becoming part of the civic populist nationalist idea of culture that is American. You're not just coming here to establish little Italy. You're not coming here to establish little China and just live as you did in the old country. You're coming to America to be an American while bringing your traditions with you and then incorporating them with the American culture. So that assimilation is what is our homogeneity. And we don't have a nation without that kind of homogeneity.
No one has a nation without that.
Right. It's one of the reasons why, sometimes people will poke fun at Japan, right? Because Japan is very homogenous, but they're all Japanese, and they very rarely bring in any kind of immigration. Recently, it's been more, and now they're regretting their decision. The large portion of the Japanese population, even though they're dwindling, they're like, bringing in immigration is not going to help our population. We need to do something different. Well, one of the reasons they're saying that, though, is because the people that they're bringing in are bringing in their home country and trying to turn Japan into Kurdistan, or trying to turn it into something else. It's not Japanese anymore. It's whatever this other country is now being imported and being overlaid on top of Japan.
But that happens every single time. We've seen that in Norway, in Sweden, in Italy, in Poland. It's everywhere.
Well, speaking of Poland, I've noticed that there's been a trend among leftists that are talking about how they're moving to Poland.
Oh, that
what?
Yeah, I've seen no less than 50 different videos on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. Poland? People are moving to Poland, and they're saying how wonderful Poland is, how safe it is, how clean it is, how everything there, the economy is great, and all the rest of this stuff.
They're right-wing conservatives. The nation.
Poland has been doing what we're trying to do. They've been doing it for 65 years. It's called causality. There's a reason Poland is friggin' beautiful, because they have zero illegal immigration in Poland. They have zero welfare in Poland. They have low taxation in Poland. They have everything that you could possibly want, where you could actually not have to worry about walking down the street in Poland and getting mugged or getting killed or getting stabbed, because they don't have the criminal element that's being there, and they don't foster that kind of behavior. It gets punished immediately. It gets punished brutally. That's why when you go to Poland, you say, my God, this looks like utopia. Yeah, it's the result of conservative politics. Yep. It's the result that everything that you just ran away from, you just ran to the result of. Yep. You are now reaping the benefit of what 60 years of conservatism has brought to a nation, that you're fighting it in your homeland. You morons.
Okay.
What is wrong with you?
I know since like the 80s, so maybe about 45 years, but yeah. And I know people who are Polish, and they've talked about their background, their family's background. There is a huge, like 70% of the, in polls, 70% of the polling have consistently shown that, no, Poland is not just, they're not center right like the United States. They're on the right. They have the wall. They are absolutely against, abhorrent, violently against socialism or even moving towards the left.
Yeah.
Because of the experience that they had and what Walesa had to go through to, and the people at the time had to go through to separate from the Soviet Union. That is never the funny thing of people saying they're going to go there because it's it's not more free. I mean, it's like the people who say, oh, well, you got to go to Europe because that's where freedom is. The Germans just came out and told everyone they have no belief in free speech whatsoever. They'll censor the hell out. They will. You have an argument with someone, you are going to jail. You retweet something that someone else said from another country, you're going to jail. There is no freedom. They have no concept, these people who go, oh no, America's so horrible. Really? You have no idea. This is what happens when people have never lived anywhere else.
Right.
Listen, I can't wait for I can't wait for the first leftist to go into a German Starbucks, if there is such a thing, and get into a fight or an insult somebody, and they wind up having to spend 3 months in jail for it, and wind up having to call the U.S. State Department. I want to come home. You're like that lady who's running rampant in Pakistan and India and all the rest of that stuff. They're telling, I'm not going nowhere till you give me land in 2,000 a week. I ain't going nowhere.
What?
You didn't see this? Oh, you didn't see this, lunatic? No. Yeah, there's some woman from Queens. Apparently,
of course.
Apparently, she got catfished by some 18-year-old Pakistani kid or something, and she went to the Middle East
to Pakistan
with no money, with an entitlement attitude. This is clearly somebody. Well, no, her family says that she's suffering from severe mental illness.
Sounds
good. You think? All right. But she's also suffering from the entitlement class of what the welfare class does, where everything is catered to you, and she's got to have everything, and you got to give me food, you got to give me somewhere to live, you got to give me a house, you got to give me a car, you got to give me and she's been going. They have. Listen, dude, there have been imams doing like sidewalk preaching in their gatherings, and she's walking through the crowd grabbing microphones from the imam, telling them, you shut up and you listen to me now. I ain't going nowhere till you give me $2,000 a week and a house. I ain't going nowhere. You're going to feed me. You're going to take care of my baby. You're going to do... Well, you know what? She in jail because after like 2 weeks...
She's dead?
After
she's
2
in the Middle
weeks,
East, there's a woman doing that. She'll die.
Right.
They stone women to death for far less than that.
Well, she's wearing the burqa. She's wearing the burqa, right? She's got her eyebrows are shaved off and then painted back on about 3 inches above the spot where they would naturally be. So she always has this look of eternal surprise, on her, and. She after, I don't know what happened, but she came out last week and she says, all y'all back home got to buy me a ticket. I want to come home. And then the next day she was in jail. So for those in the Middle East, thank you. You're absorbing at least one of us that we don't need. Thank you.
I feel really bad for her because guaranteed they beat the living hell out of her. Probably the only thing that kept her alive is they obviously knew she had to be an American, because only an American would be that stupid. No one else is that mentally damaged. No one else. I don't think
they're going to hurt her. I don't think they're going to harm her because she's.
Oh yes.
No, I don't think they're going to, because she's have enough of a public profile where if it came down to it, Trump would probably go send a plane over to go get her, to go back and get her. And I don't think they want to really raise his. But I think what they're,
beating and breaking her. I don't think her, but they beat her. Oh yeah.
Well, I don't think they're going to do her any physical harm. They may just like screw with her mentally for a while. But what I think, because I don't think they want to do that. because I think they're looking at saying, well, Orange Man is kind of crazy. Maybe we don't want to mess with the guy a little bit too much. But I think what they're trying to do is send a signal to the rest of the Americans that think they might want to come over there that, listen, we don't even want the Palestinians in our country. We sure as shit don't want any American crazies to come over here. You got your own problems. You stay there. So I think they're happy to make that statement. But
there's no doubt she is the example, but no, I hadn't heard about that because I don't follow stupid. I mean, these are stupid people. It's like the same reason why I don't watch Housewives of any damn where. I don't care.
All right. Speaking of stupid examples, Janet Millis, the governor of Maine, gets into it with Trump at the White House, and Trump says, I understand that there's one state here that's not going to comply with the executive order about keeping men out of women's sports. And she's like, well, we'll see you in court. All right. Apparently, Trump said, well, you're not getting any federal money. That's it. You're done. We're cutting it off. Her response was,
I saw that. It was funny.
They're going to still collect from the paychecks of the people of Maine what they would collect for the federal government, but they're not going to pay the federal government. Now, Maine, I did a little looking before, as of 2023, their yearly payment to the federal government was $5 million.
Yeah.
That's what the state of Maine, the state of Maine collectively gave $5 million in taxation towards the federal government and had received $13 billion in government money, in taxpayer funded money back. But now she is saying that she's going to collect from the people the shortfall that would have been otherwise collectively been received from wealthier states that have contributed to the mass pool that gets distributed to the states. So Mainers, when your paycheck, your $500 a week paycheck that you take home is now $135 a week, you can thank your governor, and you can know that the reason why you are now being robbed voraciously is because she wants there to be penises in your girl's locker room.
Yeah. Well, I think Trump was right when he said that, because states' rights. He didn't say you can't do that. Same thing saying in New York about illegal immigration. The question isn't, you can't do that. It's, okay, here's the consequence. You want to claim states' rights. You're going to say, I'm the governor and we can do this. And I say so. Okay, fantastic. And the federal government has absolutely no obligation to provide you a single dime. You broke the law. You are willfully and actively committing law. There is a consequence. Unlike a person, you can't be put in jail. But you know what? No one else in America needs to pay for any of your bills to help you out in any other way.
Right.
You have to suffer for the violation you have made. And Maine they didn't think it through. And she thought, and this is the part I thought was funny, is at least the way I read it when I was reading through this, the Maine governor thought that collecting the money that would otherwise go to federal taxes and holding it, she thought that was like a punishment and that would somehow force the federal government to start giving them back money. It's like, no. Maine is not a financial center for anything. They're not making money. It's not like money coming out of New York or Texas or California. It's Maine. It's like, no.
Not only that,
keep the money. It's not hurting anyone.
Even that though is like I don't think even that was really her thought process. Like she said, see you in court. So what she's thinking she's going to do is she's going to collect all this federal money and hold on to it for the state, right? And then when she's going to get to go to court, and she's going to say, the federal government owes us money because there was already appropriated for it, and hoping that the courts will overrule.
This isn't a rent dispute. It's not an argument with your landlord.
Well,
you got the money
but
in escrow.
Look at what they've been doing with the lawsuits since the beginning of Trump's current term. These lawsuits that are cropping up for injunctions to stop the USAID from being defunded, from stopping contracts, from removing the land leases for government buildings. All of these things have to do with the court. You're trying to use the court system as they have historically done in the absence of being able to swing legislation. So she's thinking if she has standing as a state, not only is she going to be able to rape her constituents in Maine and keep that money, she's going to force the government to pay, the federal government to pay, and it's going to give Donald Trump a black eye. And what she really doesn't understand is if you're going to go it alone as a state and claim states' rights, then you don't have standing to sue for national money.
Mm-hmm.
And look at it this way too: if Trump actually gets his way with the tariffs, it's not going to matter, because even if she collects what the federal government would have originally collected from the people of Maine, if he's going to fund the entire federal government via tariff and external trade, it suddenly doesn't matter because taxes aren't being collected for the federal government anyway. At the most. So, I mean, what would he be paying for? If he was smart, this is what he would do. And Trump's smart. So I think this is kind of where he's going with it. Taxation is we're still going to have federal taxes. But I think what it's going to do is he's going to delineate, according to the Constitution, what it is that our tax money is allowed to go for. Military, to maintain the Marines, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. And Space Force. Can't forget Space Force. And then, yeah, I know. You laugh.
No one thinks about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Into the sky. No, so then you have the military, right? So military spending is a constitutional provision for the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have they're allowed to collect taxations and excises and tariffs and so on for the operations of the federal government. That includes the Capitol building, that includes the White House, that includes the various major heads for like the Department of Defense would be still military. So that's military budget. So that's under that taxation. So ultimately, you're just upkeeping the main federal buildings in DC, and that's it. There isn't anything else that we would have to pay taxes for because the Constitution does not put in any other.
Taxes are not going away.
I don't think they're going to go completely away, but I think if he was smart, he would reduce them to the point where it was all within the constitutional jurisdiction.
Not going to happen.
And then everything else comes from like tariffs and trade and so on. Then it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, but not going to happen. I do believe it's the same thing. I mean, Doge essentially could do the same thing that you're speaking about. We're not going to, there's too many things that I think Trump wants to do or have prepared for the future. Taxes are part of life. In his lifetime, in his experience, in the nature of the way we've been running the country. I think it's a reality of economics internationally at this point, where I know lots and lots of libertarians and other people who can give 1,001 great arguments on why we should and constitutionally we must reduce taxes. Not going to happen. It's just not. Rather than waste our time with that, I like that Trump is more focused on, and I don't think he's worried about taxes. He doesn't want to raise them. He wants them lower. He wants there to be, because that is an economic stimulus, worked in his first administration. No reason why it's not going to work in this administration. People complained about it last time when he had the tax cuts, and it's only for the billionaires, and everyone had a better quality of life and had money in their pocket and a better economy.
I did. I'm not a millionaire, and I know I did better.
Yeah, everyone did. And now he's going to try and do it again. Yeah. Fantastic. it's worth at least the attempt, and his reasoning is sound. But I like the part that no one really talks about. Look at what Trump is doing. Lower taxes, which is good. He's also setting up the nation for the future. He's pretty much the first time I've seen a politician, and this includes his first administration, that is actually planning for the future, that has taken an understanding of the consequences. Why are we making the whole deal with Ukraine? That's for the rare earth metals. That's the future.
Right.
He's already future planning. Greenland, future planning. Getting the borders secure, forcing Canada and Mexico to do their job as nations.
Right.
This is future planning. This is future proofing America. This is building for the future of America, not for our generation.
No.
Definitely not for Trump's generation. He's old. He's looking at his young son and he's saying, Barron, and he's saying, okay, I got to fix this for this kid. And he is.
Yeah.
He's setting us up so that we can be successful going forward. Sadly, and I think if he thought removing taxes would be part of that process,
he would have done it.
I say he'd have already done it.
Right.
But it's not. Lower, yes. Gone, no. This is about as good as it's going to get.
And that's the problem that we saw with the latest budget hearing, with the latest budget being passed, right? People saw what was happening with Doge, and they're like, "Oh my God, he's doing it! He's ripping the Band-Aid off, and we're actually going back to the Constitution."
Mm-hmm. And not the Constitution.
They expected the cuts from. They expected the attitude of Doge in Congress, and that's not what happened.
Well, I think there's also a difference between there's politicos and then there's regular people.
Yeah.
Regular people did not expect that what was happening with Doge is, we're finally going to get rid of taxes and bring America more constitutional. No, that's political. That's you, me, Frank. That's the
Marshall.
politicos thinking, Marshall. We're thinking like that. The average person is thinking, okay, they're not wasting as much money anymore. Period.
Right.
Full stop. Done. That's as far as they're thinking about it, because they don't think about the politics. Eventually, I think in when we get to about the summer of 2026, just before the midterm elections, you're going to see a bunch of summaries coming out from every political source. And it's going to be a tally of everything that Trump has done and what are the early returns. And then everyone's going to start projecting towards the future and saying, and will this continue? Will it get better? Will it get worse? Did he make the right call or not? And I think that's when we're going to have the first real clue is if Trump's vision is working or not.
Right.
Well, the one thing that I've been looking forward to as far as Doge, again, I am looking at the political, I'm looking at the cost savings, but I'm a venomous, evil person at heart, and I want to see prosecutions. That's what I want to see. I want to see the corrupt be exposed, be arrested, be arraigned, and be prosecuted. That's what I want to see. I want to see the people who got $14 million in aid for experimental wineries that only grow three types of grapes and do no experimentation. I want to see them prosecuted. I want to see the people who got $25 million for this or $25 million for that, for programs that were shell companies. I want to see them prosecuted. That to me is more valuable than anything else, because the longer lasting effects of that accountability is what's going to save the country in the long term. Because if you can institute it and keep it going, where you say, okay, now every dollar that's being spent has not only got to be accounted for, but it has to be justified.
Yeah.
If you're a business owner, every dollar you invest in business, you expect and demand, if the business is running properly, for you to regain $2 to $3 back. You want to make an investment, a return on your investment. Every dollar the federal government spends needs to have a return on it in some capacity, not necessarily paid back to the federal government, but an overall benefit to society. Well, okay, the federal government spent X amount of dollars on this or X amount of dollars on that. Well, it generated more for the economy. You
Right.
hear a lot of that argument about welfare and stuff like that that said, well, welfare spending adds to the economy because people spend the money they get on welfare. Yeah, but when you take your bureaucracy out of it and you realize that 60% of the welfare spending is bureaucracy, by the time the people get the money that they spent, they're not contributing to the economy. So I want to see that accountability. Nancy Pelosi got $14 million. Her husband and their winery got $14 million from the federal government for experimental winery to grow experimental grapes. They don't do any of that. They still haven't done it. They've never done it. I want to see the accountability when it comes to all these Congress people and Senates that are sitting on certain boards where they literally affect the profit margins of companies that they own and trade stocks in.
Yeah.
That's what
that-
I want to see. I want to see the corruption exposed. Even if it costs money, and we lost the money prosecuting this, it saves money in the future by
Right.
preventing it from happening again. And justice needs to happen. These people have got to be held accountable.
And
No,
that's
I think
that,
I'll just jump in real quick with. I agree with you. I think hopefully Doge will audit and create a pattern of audits. Every member of Congress should have a public, transparent audit of their income stream. We have too many people like AOC. 6 years ago, AOC was making $40,000 a year as a bartender, and today she has $17 million as a net worth.
yeah.
Well,
and her job only pays her $175,000 a year.
Well,
how do you do
they
that?
say that figure, as far as she's concerned, is not true. They say she only has a net worth of about $400,000. And to be quite honest, I think it's true. I don't think she's got that kind of money because I don't think she's smart enough to figure out the idiosyncrasies of Washington unless that money is in somebody else's name.
One,
that's
maybe, but two,
right.
You got to take into account her apartment, which is a $15,000 a month apartment. She's got her Tesla that she bought initially straight off the lot. That was a $95,000 vehicle at the time. I mean, she's.
Oh, I want to see. Don't get me wrong. I want to see her audited too. I want to see every one of them audited. Republican, Democrat, Independent.
Yeah.
I want to see every single one of them audited, because when you're a public employee, you should be. I also think they should all be drug tested. Every single one of them.
I can live with that
If
too.
I have to go to work for a big corporation, one of the first things they're going to do with my employment indoctrination is to drug test me, because I'm responsible for their reputation. I have to sign a code of conduct. I want, all this stuff. These things should all be, if we put a standard lower on the people that represent us than a standard that we apply to ourselves in the private sector, we're not doing ourselves any favors.
Right.
These people need to be divest themselves of any investments for a period of time that they're serving the politic, or at least have everything put into a blind trust where they have no idea where their money is. They just know their money is someplace.
Theoretically, that's what they have now, and it doesn't work. They need an audit.
Then they got to figure out how to. Then, if they're going to go with that system, at least figure out how to make it work with a private company that can step in and do the process for the government, so it's beyond reproach of corruption. We got to figure out how to root out all this corruption that's in there.
Absolutely.
Doge has been doing a great job at exposing the corruption, and laying these people off. Who, by the way, all of you who got laid off, go learn how to code, because that's what your boy Sleepy Joe, the kid sniffing pedo, told everybody that got laid off during COVID. Go learn how to code. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I'm looking forward to more than anything else. And along those same lines, Pam Bondi is sitting there with the list on her desk of the Epstein flight logs.
So wait a minute.
And
Before we do that, I think Dal was trying to jump in there.
Well, I was
I'm
going to
sorry,
say,
Dal.
no, that's fine. All I was going to add was that this is a very common sentiment right now. Like if you're looking at the trends on social media, the trend is now, besides the fatigue, the reason that the people are feeling fatigue is because they're not seeing any prosecutions. They're like, you've just taken a month and a half to unearth a whole shit ton of corruption that's blatantly obvious to the public, and nothing's happening. Where are the perp walks? Where are the morning raids? Where are these people in handcuffs? Where even just a hint to the American people that there are ongoing investigations that are now initiated into this that will eventually result in actual prosecutions and convictions and jail time. This is what people are wanting to hear now.
They can't say it.
And the thing is, though, and I understand the reason why they want it, but something that we have to understand is this has been a month and a half only so far. Now Trump has a lot to do in 2 years before the midterms, because historically, midterms, the power balance always shifts.
Always to the other party.
So he has to make sure that whatever he's doing for the future of the country is so good that people don't want to change the balance of power in Washington when it comes to the midterms. So I understand that it's only a month and a half in. We have to wait for the outcomes, right? And so that there's that. Like, people are going back and forth with that because they understand it, but they really want to see this. As far as the Epstein paperwork that's on Pam Bondi's desk, we didn't get a straightforward answer as to why it hasn't been released yet or when it will be released, although the JFK files were said to going to be released sometime at the beginning of March, they think. But they're not setting an actual date because there was I think it was one of Pam Bond, it was the DOJ gave out a letter, and in it they said they hinted at ongoing investigations. So something has cropped up in those documents.
Well,
that
we'll see about that.
Well, listen, I'm not buying this bullshit about ongoing investigations.
Right.
The reason why the JFK files were held off as long as they had is because they had to make sure that every single person that was involved
with them
on that day was dead. And it just so happens that very famous photo of Jackie Kennedy climbing out the back of the limousine, and there's a Secret Service agent that's jumping on the back of the limo. That guy just died 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Okay, that guy just died. Yeah, he just died 2 days ago. The last Secret Service agent that was at the scene that day just died. I don't know if that has any bearing of it, but here's the thing: if you're gonna put these dates on things and not be completely transparent about why the dates are being put on there, all you're doing for the American people, the skeptics like myself, is saying, "Well, who the hell are you covering for?" Right. Because I want an unredacted, unedited list, good, bad, ugly, of everybody who was there, how many times they were there. I want every single one of these people questioned as to why they were there, justify their time being there, and to use the words of Maxine Waters: "If you got nothing to hide, you got no reason to be scared." I'm gonna use that, because until we charge somebody, questioning them is perfectly legal. Yeah. We can question them. All right. I want these people to be questioned, and people are going to say, "Oh yeah, but there'll be people who you'll drop a seed of contempt in people's mind of somebody who may have gone there for nothing nefarious, but it'll always be there, and think about it." Well, you know what? Maybe that's okay too. Maybe
Well,
that's okay. Maybe because people will have a better ability to start thinking about who their friends were. Because how many of these pieces of shit in Hollywood knew Harvey Weinstein was raping girls in his friggin' office, and then they kept bringing girls to him over
well,
and over and over again for the casting couch.
I'd have
They
it.
knew, and they did it.
I'd say something a little bit different about that because I'm going to presume how people choose their friends or why they choose them, but having a shadow of doubt attached to your name because you are on a list of attending a island
And a fairy.
where there was vile sexual abuses going on a regular basis. Yeah, I'd rather have you have a shadow of doubt follow you, even though you may have a legitimate and perfectly valid reason that you can present to the public and say, no, I'm just an electrician. I had no idea. I come in and I clean the clogs and then they fly me back. I didn't get to hang out. Okay, fantastic. Still going to have the shadow of doubt, but you know what? Fair enough. But that is worth it if it also allows us to investigate or at least to uh, use that as a means to prevent this from ever happening again. So, because everyone who will be on that list will have a shadow of doubt, that makes it a disincentive for someone ever doing it again.
Yeah.
Because
Right. That's what.
people may
That's
get
what I'm saying.
investigated. Right. And because some people may get investigated as a consequence of that list coming out for a lot of regular, legitimate reasons. I don't care how powerful they are.
Well, listen.
Then that's a
I
good
had
thing.
look during the 1970s. There was a case in New York City where the mob was teaming up with South American drug dealers to bring cocaine into New York, and what they were doing is they were packaging it in pizza dough.
No, yeah.
And they were distributing the pizza dough to pizzerias that were mob connected all throughout New York City. One of my uncles was a plumber, and his trade was a gas line man. He hooked up gas lines and everything. He happened to know a guy who owned one of the pizzerias and said, "Hey, we're expanded into the back part of the building. We need to put in a couple more pizza ovens. Can you run some gas lines?" So he went in and he ran gas lines for him. Another pizzeria said, "Hey, we're going to do the same." So my uncle wound up installing gas lines in like 6 different pizzerias, with the owners of which all got indicted for drug trafficking. And because my uncle was there, my uncle got picked up on a RICO case.
Yeah.
And my uncle had to go to trial and everything else, and he was eventually found not guilty. They said, no, he's just a blue-collar pizza guy, a gas guy. You know, he had a private little company, and that was it. The justice system worked out. He got his defense, and everything was fine. Nobody ever nobody ever called him Charlie the cocaine pizza guy anymore. You know, after that, it was
Right.
done.
Hey.
And the same thing, I understand there's going to be people who are on that flight log who maybe didn't do anything, but you are with one of the, if not the most prolific child sex trade traffickers in the world, who is catering to the most powerful people in the world. You're not there by mistake.
Yeah.
You have got to be somewhere. Listen, my uncle got picked up because he knew a guy who owned a pizzeria. How many regular people, how many people walking around in the trades or landscapers do you know Jeffrey Epstein? Okay. If you're there, odds are you're going to have some splaining to do. And I want the list. I want the list released. I
Right.
want the JFK stuff released. I want it all released, and enough of this. I don't want to hear any about selective editing, because even if you, oh no, this is unredacted. Well, the longer you take him, the less I believe you.
Right. The Tim Pool actually put out a article or a video yesterday, I believe, and he was speculating as to why the list had not left Pam Bondi's desk for the public. And you know, he's one of his speculations is during the course, and you might be able to speak to this, Frank, because you used to be a police officer. So when you do an investigation, and sometimes you have the persons of interest, right? But there are people that you are also interested in that aren't necessarily directly involved to the line of questioning and investigation that starts with the people that are the direct persons of interest. They're third parties or whatever. The one speculation is that the reason it has not left Pam Bondi's desk is because it's not so much the people that are on the list, but the third parties that may be tied to people on the list. And if they start putting that out there, it sort of acts as a tip off for the third parties that they're also trying to collect. So that's just speculation, but it makes sense. Here's my thinking on it. The longer you take to release that list, the more likely it is that people are just going to start burning evidence anyway. It is better.
They've been doing it already.
It is far better to release the list to the people, because if the internet has proved anything, you give them a little bit of information and we can find anyone and anything. Anywhere.
Eventually. Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah, world full of people with the internet. Yeah.
So I mean, there is no gain, at least as far as the public is concerned, by keeping this hidden. It all benefits whoever is on that list and whoever is tied to people on that list. It needs to come out.
Yeah,
Now,
and it needs to.
It should have come out. It should have come out the day Epstein died. But
no, it should have been out even before then. There's no reason why it's gone.
It should have been part of the. It should have been part of the indictment. The evidence should have been presented. It should have been presented, and everybody on that list should have been called as a witness,
right,
and questioned.
Should have,
as if not a witness, a co-conspirator, and if a co-conspirator, an additional indictment, and additional charges, an additional trial, every single one of them, because we know that there's a who's who of Hollywood on that list. We know there's a who's who of Washington and world leaders on that list. We have royalty, for whatever that's worth,
potentially
is on that list.
Oh no, he's on there. It's proven. Andrew's there.
But you see, that's the thing.
That's right. It was him. Yes.
Yeah.
If we have a partial list, if we have some that are confirmed that we know, then information got out.
Right.
So why isn't it all out? That's the question. If some of it is out, all of it should be. And that's part of my problem. Oh, quick thing. Do you like coffee?
Yeah, I like coffee.
Do you like espresso?
Yeah. It gets kind of gritty at the bottom when I chew it.
Nah. Well, you're not supposed to eat the filter. Well, here's
a non. What we have to deal with Mountain Man there, guys.
There's a funny
guys
story
use tobacco.
There's a funny story behind that. When I was in Bulgaria, I'll tell it to you guys sometime.
Well, all I was going to say was this is a non-solicited endorsement for Manhattan Special, New York's own since 1895. Al Pisaro's famous espresso soda.
It's a soda.
Al Pisaro. Yeah, it's basically espresso that's got sugar in it and then carbonated. It's brewed and bottled in Brooklyn, New York. It's a Manhattan Special.
Wow.
If you're a coffee or espresso drinker, this is bliss in a bottle. This is most people who have it take the first sip of it, they go, yeah, what the hell is that? By the second sip, you are an addict, and you wait. You count the days between being able to have a bottle of this.
It sounds like
Manhattan Special. Oh my no! This I've had Moxie. I like Moxie. I like Moxie from the first time I drank Moxie. This is completely different. This is just like pure coffee, and it's heaven. It's heaven on earth. Ice cold espresso coffee. Oh man, it's so good.
Well, that's good.
Hey, Vass, let me ask you a question. Do you remember the guy from the news? He was like on WPIX during the day. He had a little show. He was Mr. Food.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Food.
He used to go. Ooh, it's so good.
Good. Yeah.
He was a Jewish guy, had a big bushy beard
Big
on him, his
beard,
big
yeah.
giant nose.
He always wore the
Always had
chef
the
hat.
chef's hat.
Yeah,
All right.
Mr. Food.
I've been trying to find something on this guy for like 20 years and I can't find it. He at one point had, so, and listen, folks, this is off topic, I know, but sometimes we talk about food and stuff like that here on the show and childhood memories. But there was an herb that he had, I guess he must have owned part of the company or something like that. You know the chia pets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put the shit on the head, shit grows out of it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Apparently that's an herb of some sort.
Really?
And people don't realize that it's an herb. They just think it's like this little fungus or
I thought it
some
was a
shit
weed.
that grows them. Yeah, they think it's a weed or a fungus. It's actually an herb. Well, during the 1980s, Mr. Food championed this particular herb, and it came in packages. It was freshly cut herbs called tumamina.
Tumamina, huh? I can look it up.
Tumamina. And I've been trying to find one of the commercials he used to do because he used to do the food segment on WPIX News and then WORTV. He used to do the food segments there. And whatever the hell he made, it didn't matter what it was. Didn't matter what it was. Tuna casserole, throw some tumamina on it. Yo, you got lasagna, throw some tumamina on it. Rice pudding, throw some freaking tumamina on it. I don't know what the hell the shit was, but I
Sounds like
cannot.
turmeric.
No, it's not turmeric. Turmeric is a completely different thing. Turmeric is collected the same way cinnamon is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is just like this very small leafy green vegetation that has like, I guess some sweet characteristic to it. I found, I don't know how, but apparently I had the wrapper for one of these packages in an old box of photographs. Apparently it must have been on the table while looking at photographs and the little package wrapper got in there. I'm trying to find the commercial for this stuff so I can find out if it even I cannot find it no matter what I do. I cannot
You gotta
find
see
it.
the
It's
old
just-
news shows. You gotta get. I don't even know where you would go for a record of WPIX news from like.
and I can't even ask him because he's dead for like 10 years, the guy.
No, you'd have to actually reach out to WPIX because it's probably on. No, it wouldn't even be on microfiche. You'd have to ask. I don't even know that they would have it in their vault.
Yeah, in the archives
Because
or
it's
something
news.
like that.
It's news, video news. I don't know that the only place you would get something like that, as far as I can immediately think of, is WPIX News. It would be something that they have in their catalog vault, just for posterity's sake. But
I just have to find the stuff to make sure it's not a figment of my imagination.
yeah,
You know, but I just got to look it up. But
yeah.
it's just one of those things because he used to put the stuff on his cooking show, and then apparently he bought stock in the company, and then he started promoting it, or that he was a spokesperson for it, or something like that. I don't know if it died with him. I don't know, but they still sell the chia pet.
I did not know that was I literally thought it was just some weed. I did not know it was a herb. Who knew?
Yeah, weird. Speaking of weeds, you heard the Nancy Pelosi federal building is going to go up for sale.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
No.
Oh yeah, Trump has decided that the functional use of the building doesn't really serve a purpose, so he's going to sell it. He's putting it in all other federal buildings that they don't use to the extent that they should. He's going to sell them. He's going to get rid of them. He says, "Why are we paying all of these billions of dollars a year maintaining office space and buildings we don't need for services we don't have for organizations that don't exist? So
No,
let's
he's
get
right.
rid of them."
He's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
There's actually an investment plan. Maybe Voss is familiar with it, called REITs, REIT.
REITs.
REITs.
They're called REITs. Yes, I am familiar with REITs.
Well, it's basically they became a thing because the IRS said that the government needed to pay rent on their buildings, and so what the government does is it funnels money out for rent, and then pays itself back.
Yeah, not the first time that the government does that. We have a lot of convoluted payment systems that go out, and it's not the first time that the government's paying itself
Yeah.
for no apparently good reason.
So
Other
no,
than
we should get rid of those buildings, because if they're not housing anybody and they're not serving a purpose, get rid of them.
well,
I'm sure there's
well,
somebody
people-
out there that would love to buy the Pelosi building for historical purposes. I'm
or to
sure.
burn it down.
Well, I know that I know about 25 years ago, I was looking to purchase part of an old military installation in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Hmm.
They were splitting stuff up, and they had a couple of buildings in Bayonne, and they were going to go up for public auction, and the buildings were in really good shape, but the grounds were horrible.
Oh,
And they just needed to be really maintained. But the buildings were in good shape because they were just cinder block buildings.
Mhm.
There was like painted cinder block on the inside, outside, the whole
Yeah.
thing. That was it, just cement structure. And there was a couple of buildings I was actually looking at for doing something with. And people say, yeah, well, you sell all of these buildings. You're getting a percentage of what they cost to build them. I'm like, yeah, but it's costing more to maintain them every year than what it costs to actually put them up. And to keep these buildings active and on the dock, if we're not using them for any specific purpose, let's return them to the taxpayers by means of selling them and putting them in the hands of business owners.
Well,
Right.
the better thing,
And maybe you can facilitate some infrastructure, some business growth,
well, you do
something.
the business growth, or more importantly, just take the money and use it to pay down on the debt, like the actual debt, not the interest. Screw that. You got to take.
Yeah, the
way to
debt
do
you
it.
incurred,
Yeah.
right? The debt you incurred when you built them in the first place.
Right. And pay that down so that we don't have an escalating problem, because no one's addressed the interest on the
Right.
debt is going to be worth more than the damn debt itself. But so I know that's interesting. We didn't touch something I think was kind of interesting, and Joel mentioned it earlier. I wanted to bring it up. And
The
by the way,
toaster.
Joel, thank you for the comments out there. I love that you're paying attention, man. I always enjoy having you as part of the audience. So Joel happened to mention it, and we all heard about this. Oh my God, there's SSI. There are people who are collecting checks from Social Security. They're older than Bernie Sanders. Can that actually be true? Yes, they have at least 2 people who are 300 years old, according to
The
Social
data
Security
shows,
numbers.
Yeah.
I'm like, and now the debunk on this is no, 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 no. The United States government isn't paying anyone who happens to be over 120 years old, because the Social Security Department automatically says if you're older than 120 years old, we're not going to pay you anything. Okay, one, they only made that change in 2023. A lot of people didn't know that.
Yep.
2023 was the first year that they figured out that, hey, we have something like 140,000 people who are they're actually making money, and they're 200 years old. Don't know how that works out. Maybe we should cut them off. But here's the thing. There are 7 million people who are between the age of 100 and 120 years old. And that's not even statistically correct, but it's on the books according to Social Security Department. And we have people who are there for 200 years. The fact that there's anyone 200 years old and still on the books tells you your system is screwed. This is wrong. Why are you keeping them there? We got someone who's 300 years old on the books. What the hell is going on? We're talking about older than the country itself.
And what they were saying is, trying to explain it away is that when you fill in that particular database, the way it's coded, if you leave the date of birth blank, it defaults to a particular date, which would explain their age. But the thing is, on any federal document that you have ever filled out, if you leave something blank, what happens?
Oh, I get an audit, or I get sued, or I get thrown in jail.
Right. For example, the 4473, Frank, if you don't fill out a box on the 4473, what happens?
Well, in our current system, and this was funny yesterday, while at work, we had a gentleman in his late 70s who has never touched a computer in his life. And now our 4473s are all done electronically.
Right.
There's no more paper copy, at least not at my facility. Smaller FFLs will have the paper copies, but ours are done electronically. So I had a coach, and I can't fill out the application for somebody. I can answer their
Correct.
questions, but I can't physically touch it. It's illegal to have somebody else file it for fill it out for you, unless in the event that it's a foreign language and you need an interpreter. But the interpreter has to be able to help you. You still physically have to do it. If you're illiterate, you can have somebody help you with it, but you have to physically fill it out. There's a lot of different things, but in our case, if you leave something blank on a form, it will not let you get to the next page.
Right.
So there's a preset in there that it's mostly to protect us, that we don't get a voided contract. That every single thing, right? Everything has to be filled out for the button to pop up that says, "Okay, you can now go to the next page." Now, if on paper, if you miss something, your outfitter, the guy who's going to set you up with your gun, his responsibility is to check the form to make sure you didn't miss anything. And if it gets filed, he gets in trouble faster than you get in trouble. The only reason you get in trouble is if you put the wrong information or you lie on it.
Right.
And the funny thing is, they will tell you if you have a typo on there, you can get in trouble for having a typo. So say you live on 10th Avenue and you put 10 AV, but you forget the E for Avenue for the proper abbreviation. You can get in trouble for that. But if you go to the ATF's website and pull up the PDF for the 4473 and you copy it and put it into spell check, you'll find 3 typos on it. There's 3, and I also just sent a letter to ATF also, where it says sex.
Yep.
Man, Mrs. Male, female, non-binary. I sent them a letter and I said, hey, listen, I said, when are you going to fix this shit? You're fixing everything else with this. Why is that on? Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not to get off on a tear about the 4473, but there's a lot of information on there that has no relevance at all. All right, the 4473 should be your name, date of birth, your current address. If you don't have a concealed carry permit in the state that you live on, your social security number, even though it's not supposed to be used as a term of identification, it's how they could look you up. That's it. Name, address, date of birth, social security. That's all they should need. Because in your file, when they look you up, they're going to determine if you're male or female.
Right.
In your file, when they look you up, they can determine if you've committed any crimes. You should not need on your 4473 your height. You should not need on your 4473 your weight. You should not need on your 40, because they don't ask you what your eye color or your hair color is. Okay, they don't ask you that, but they ask you your height and your weight. But you know what else they ask you? Your race. Okay, what difference does it make what race you are when you are exercising your constitutional fucking rights?
Right.
It should have no bearing whatsoever what your race is, not when you have a government that allows you to identify as a different person other than whom you were at the time you were born.
Yep.
If you could identify as a different gender, then surely you could identify as a different race. If you could identify as a different gender, surely you could identify with being older than you are or younger than you are. I'm an old soul. I'm a kid at heart. Well, what difference does it make? What does your race have to do with you exercising your rights? Nothing. Not a damned thing. And yet they put this on there. Now they're going to ask you questions on the 4473. Have you renounced your citizenship? Are you a citizen? Are you a legal resident? Have you been adjudicated of a mental instability? Have you ever been discharged from the military? Well, you know what? They know all of this already. They know all of it by the time you file. That's part of the background check. That's why you're doing the background check.
Yep.
Are you a prohibited person or are you not? Your race, your ethnicity, your gender do not disqualify you. We do not discriminate based on those factors. We discriminate based on whether or not you have a criminal record or you have a tendency to be a criminal. Now, I believe that once you've paid your debt to society and you've done your time, you should have your rights reinstated to you, such as being able to vote, be able to carry a firearm because you're now living in society. If you're too dangerous to own a gun, maybe they shouldn't have let you out of jail in the first place.
Yep.
Maybe that's part of the problem. That's why you should have your rights back.
Yeah.
But the fact that they even ask these questions is an insult to freedom. It's an insult to freedom. What difference does it make? I had a gentleman in the store yesterday who was born in Costa Rica. He is as black as this box. Okay? Identifies first, they ask, the first question in the race is Hispanic / Latino or not Hispanic, Black, or Latino. That's the two questions. Because then they break it down from that. Are you Native American, Pacific Islander, Asian, Caucasian, or African American?
Right.
Okay. This guy is clearly not white. Okay. But he's not of African descent.
Right.
He's of Latino descent. But he's blacker than black can be black.
Yeah, that's not unusual.
Latin American white. Latin American white guy. That's how he has to fill out his application. Now, if they put...
Okay.
Right,
Yeah,
he's not black. He's not black.
But I
He's
see what
not...
No,
He
Hispanic.
is not of African descent. He's Hispanic.
Yeah.
But he's white.
But if the ATF show up at his door with his form,
They're going to lock his ass up.
right? Because he's like, you lied on your form because you're blacker than midnight, but you said you were Latino white.
Right. The only way I can find this guy in the dark is if he fucking smiled. Okay. This guy is dark. All right. Now he's not black. He's not African descent, but he's black. But they're forcing him to identify as, and he says, "Well, he goes, I really don't think I'm white." He goes, "I'm Latino."
Yeah.
He goes, I'm not Caucasian. I said, brother, I don't know what to tell you. You got to fill it out to the best of your knowledge, what you think you are. And it's another reason. Why do you put people in that position? We all come in different colors, different shades. We're all the same race.
Yeah.
We're all the same race, regardless of how much melanin you have in you. We're humans. I don't understand. I don't understand it. I can't fathom why they pigeonhole people and put them into that thing. And then they say, oh, well, we want to be able to know the statistics. What percentages of different races own firearms? What business is it of yours? How about you just ask yourself what percentage of Americans are exercising their rights?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And leave it at that. Because all you're doing is putting another fucking wall between people. You're just putting another wall between people. You're putting another label on somebody, and that's why culture is divided. You're human. You're American. Are you not an American? Okay. Are you an immigrant? Yes. Are you legal or are you not? That's all we need to know.
Yep.
We don't need to know your race. It's ridiculous to me.
No, it is. It is definitely a ridiculous thing. And then as you say, it should not
And
matter. As long
right,
as you're
Pablo says that some of us are more athletic than others. Pablo, in my younger days, 52 inch vertical. I could jump like a rabbit. Not anymore. Not bad for a big fat guinea, but
you probably crack something. But no,
yeah. Today I cracked the thing I land on.
but the thing of it is like it's funny that you mentioned that, because when I was overseas, the distinction, especially in a place like South Africa where I was living at the time, it's not so much your color, right? It's more your tribe. So it was like it had you lived inside this border, and there was not really a sense of nationalism. It was more of a sense of, well, what clan did you belong to? That was more important. In the United States, that's the beauty of it. We don't have clans.
Well,
You're an American.
Listen, you go to Europe today, it doesn't matter what color you are. When you go to Europe, they hate all of us.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You're an American, you're scum. It doesn't matter. They don't seem to be able to differentiate us into different categories based on our race, because we're all American. We only come back to this country and start doing it. Now, I laughed. I saw a report on the news a couple of years ago. A crime victim in Canada was a black guy. He was a victim of some sort of extortion scheme, right? And they were interviewing him. And this was I was upstate New York, and I was watching the news, and sometimes we get feed from Canada comes over. You know how it is. We get stories from across the border. And the reporter identified this Canadian man, this black Canadian man, who was born and raised in Canada. His parents are born and raised in Canada, as an African American Canadian.
What?
He can't be African American and Canadian. He would just be African.
Yeah. Well, they don't. The media in this country is so brainwashed into identifying anybody who's darker than tan as African American, that even when they speak of black citizens of other countries, they call them African Americans.
Yeah, and it's insulting.
Now, if you go to Africa, people in Africa don't call themselves African.
No, they don't.
Well,
they're Liberian
country, or
because Africa is a continent. It's not a country. The only country that has Africa in the name is South Africa. Every other nation in Africa has its own name. So when you speak to people from the continent of Africa, and you ask them where they're from Niger, they're from Libya, they're from Liberia,
Congo,
they're from
Burkina Faso.
Right. They're from wherever,
go by their tribe.
Right. Whatever country they are from. So why is it that when you have somebody from the Congo immigrates to America, why are they not a Congolese American?
They would be.
Why are they not being referred to as a Liberian American? Because when an Italian comes to the United States, they're an Italian American. A Polak comes here, he's a Polish American, an Irish American. Whatever country they come from is what they call them. But we allow the people in this country to lump the people. How many nations are there in Africa? 120?
Yeah.
56, actually.
I don't know. There's more than I know. Okay, there's more than the states, right? But we allow the people to lump, say, 60 different nationalities into one culture, when every one of those nationalities is its own culture. And we let them do it based on the melanin content of what continent they came from.
There's a couple of things to that. See, and I understand this argument because it's the argument with Kamala Harris, because she's black, but she's not African American. And this is an old argument. It's something that goes on in the black community a lot more than people think it does, because of the very same reasons you're pointing out, Frank. Is that, no, there are very dark-skinned people who are in Panama and Cuba and all around the world. And many of them are black but that doesn't mean African American. America is stupid that way because the American psyche, the news media in particular, education in particular, especially the education system, they equate black equals African American. They're interchangeable terms to them. They're not. They never were. You say someone is African American, that isn't actually a term. That's a new term. That's actually the latest progressive term, and it didn't even show up until the late 70s, early 80s. It's the latest thing. We went from Negro to black to African American. And that's all about the politics. And that's the politics coming from the colleges who are trying to be neo-African and go back to Africa, because African American actually doesn't exist. It's one of the first, it is the first hyphenated American identity. It is a catch-all. It is stupid. And it's based on the concept of, well, you're black, your skin is black, therefore you're from Africa, and Africa is all encompassing. It's dumb.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Was like, is a guy from Egypt? Is he African American? Is he African American? But he's from Africa,
which is meaningless.
Right. And the same thing if you're from,
but the slave, the reason
if you're from South Sudan, you're from Africa.
You're Sudanese,
but you're Sudanese.
Yeah, and that's part of that monolith. That's why the monolithic perception is wrong. Like this is why when we talk about American culture, one of the biggest sticking points for America was that you were to be treated as an individual, regardless of where you came from. And if you assimilated as an American, you became an American.
See, that's
so when you talk about Native Americans, Frank, you're a Native American, and you're a Native American, and I'm a Native American, and somehow I'm also a person of color. We'll get into that in a minute. And
that's because you're an Afrikaner.
That's actually my descent is from Eastern Europe, and it was really funny when I confused somebody. But anyway, the point is that this is the issue with monolithic thinking. We are the human race. There is only one race. It's the human race, Homo sapien. Everything else is all cultural. It's all ethnic. It's all nationality. So there really is no such thing as racism, except when you're talking about a political ideology that tries to pigeonhole and control populations.
Well, that's why I said it came from the colleges.
Right.
College, African American.
And they got that from the communists. The communists are...
Well, they probably did, but I know that the term itself came about in the late 70s, early 80s as a transition away from, because being called black, which, by the way, was an upgrade from being called Negro, which was 50s and 60s. My grandparents and my parents were called Negro most of their lives.
Right.
And then my parent and I became black. And it wasn't until my youngest sister, who's way younger than me, came about. She's 14 years younger than me. And she was part of the generation that's African American. Big difference. And it's all because they were trying to satisfy that academic intelligentsia divisiveness. It's the same division we see now, where they're using race to divide people and find more ways to split us up. It's as simple as, okay, you're black. Fine. Why? That's a color of skin. True. Close enough. You should probably call me bronze. But hey, if that's it, I can live with that because it has nothing to do with me being American.
Right. But that's how we can tell that these people are unserious, because if I can be a person of color based on their rules, right? Whatever they decide at the time is the rule. Look at me. Look at me. I definitely hail from like a Caucasus region I am Caucasian. I am a white man. Like the why would I be lumped in just because of where I came from as a person of color?
Because they have to
You
divide.
know,
Right.
and
It
well,
makes no sense though.
right.
It's arbitrary.
well, here's the thing. Also, because of things falling in and out of fashion. Okay,
Right.
if you look at what they called, the scientific terms for the races way back when we started,
Oh, yeah.
you had three
Mhm.
scientific terminologies for the races:
Yeah.
Caucasoid,
Yes.
Negroid,
Yes.
and Mongoloid.
Yes.
Those were the three.
That was it.
Caucasoid was everything under the Caucasian banner.
Right.
Negroid was everything referred to anybody of African descent, and Mongoloid was anybody of Asian descent, including Native Americans,
Yes.
because they crossed the land bridge over from Asia.
I remember
Now,
learning that.
right now, Mongoloid is now a derogatory term.
Yeah. They go crazy about that.
Okay, Mongoloid is the derogatory term. Negro came from Negroid, which was the scientific term that they ascribed to African people.
Yeah.
Okay, because Negro is Latin for the word black.
Right.
Okay, and if you don't think that that's true, pick up a Spanish box of fucking crayons.
Spanish,
All right,
Italian. I mean,
right,
go to the romance languages. It's just a
right.
fact. Yes.
I mean, that there's a country called Montenegro. It means Black Mountains. All right, so that's where. But the only term that's not now viewed as insulting is Caucasoid or Caucasian.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to still use the 150-year-old scientific definition of what they consider the Caucasian race as Caucasoid, and not have that be considered an insult. But when you look at the other two scientific definitions that were ascribed to the other two major racial categories in the world, they are. So unless we get rid of all three, we can't have one. All right? That's the way I'm looking at it. We are either one people under God, under creation, that we all stem from the same genetic base, or we're not. And I'm going to tell you an interesting story. When I was a kid, this is going to be real quick. When I was a kid, because my mom and dad worked different shifts and my father was a police officer and couldn't afford to have a babysitter, my siblings were older than I was. So a lot of times I was going to be locked in the house alone if there was no other choice. When I was a little kid, my father took me to work from time to time when he was going to be running the sergeant's desk at the 1st Precinct in Lower Manhattan. And my father and I went to work one day, and then we were out at lunch, took me to lunch, and a call had come out over the radio that there was a shooting involving 2 officers from the 1st Precinct. They were assassinated on a street corner in Lower Manhattan.
Whoa.
One officer was white, one officer was black. It was a drive-by shooting. Somebody opened up on them with shotguns, and that was it, okay? Now, everybody responded to the call. The whole precinct responded to the call. My father dropped me back at the police station and left me there. And my father went and he responded to the call too. 3 or 4 hours later, my father's shift is coming to an end. He picks me up in the police car at the police station, and he takes me to the crime scene. And on the corner are a bunch of little yellow tags on the floor where shotgun shells were found and everything. This is before semi-automatic handguns and rifles, so before they were really prevalent. So there was like 5 or 6 shotgun shells in the street. And the time when the whole chalk outline thing is a myth that really never really happened.
Yeah.
But there was 2 pools of blood on the corner where both of these officers had fallen. Mm-hmm. And they were right on a street corner by a storm drain. And both of these officers bled out very quickly. So there was a big, giant pool of blood on the floor. My father took me out of the police car and he walked me over. because he wanted me to understand what had happened. And I was maybe 5 or 6 years old at the time. And my father looked at the floor and with tears in his eyes, because my father knew both of these cops. Both of them were friends of his. My father looked at the floor and he said, you know this one, because I knew all the cops in the precinct. They all babysat me at one point or another, right? And he asked me, he says, which blood is white? Which blood is black?
Yeah, you
And
couldn't know.
there's no answer.
Right.
And my father told me, he goes, all of us are brothers. He goes, whether we wear a uniform or we don't, we're brothers because we bleed the same. We are all one people.
Yep.
And that is something that has stuck with me my entire life, as to remember that. And that's why I get so insulted when I see people who, it's bad enough that there are people there that want to keep people divided out of hatred for the opposite race. But there are people that decide that they want to keep themselves separated because they use love of their own race as a way to hide their hatred.
Yeah.
I want, why is it okay that we don't want your race mixing with ours is bad? But then you have other people say, well, we want our race to stay within itself is good. It's the same sentiment. It's the same sentiment despite who says it. It's just opposite people saying it. When the fact of the matter is, we're all the same friggin' people, and unless we start working and living together to try and advance the human cause, we will never elevate any racial cause. We all came from somewhere. There's a spot in the middle of Africa where they call the birthplace of humanity, that every trace of human DNA can be traced back. It just depends on which branch of what family followed what river that left that. There's no difference between the people, and we got to stop acting like there is. And we got to start insisting that the government stop treating us like there's a difference between us.
And that's one of the reasons why the founders in their wisdom and their vision for the future, when they drafted the founding documents, they didn't go with science-y terms or anything like that. They said in plain language, we're all individuals, and the common denominator between all of us individuals is that we are endowed by our Creator and by nature itself with unalienable rights, and those rights supersede all law.
Well,
that's the common denominator between us all, and that was the great American experiment: is can we, as humans, live together in a way that respects the common ground of unalienable rights and make it a functional country? And for what it's worth, 250 years later, we're still here. And yeah, we're not the way we should be, but we're still here, and we still have those founding documents dictating to our government, not to us, to our government, that we are to operate a particular way because we are all human beings with those same unalienable rights and the freedom to exercise those rights free of government control. It's a negative document. It's a limitation on governance. The people govern themselves. The Constitution is the progenitor of government, not the subject of it. And we, the people, are the progenitor of the Constitution, and thereby the government is subject to us. And we've forgotten that. We've been made to forget about it. We've been told all our lives that that's not how it works. People in power are the ones that dictate to you as a subject of your country how you are supposed to live. We gave that up as Americans. We gave that up because we wanted to do something different. We wanted to find that common denominator between all individuals and see if we could make it work. And the only way that it works is if everybody participates. So Pablo's right. Human nature is tribal. There's nothing anyone can do to stop that. You'll never eliminate it entirely because we'll always have our preferences. We'll always congregate with each other. But on a certain level, we can all recognize and respect that we have a common denominator that runs through all of us, and we can act like it and make a nation out of it. We've
I'm
managed
not
so far.
trying.
We've
I'm not
managed.
trying to. I'm not
No,
trying
go
to
ahead.
dismiss the tribal nature of people. I'm not
Right.
trying to diminish that. I understand that there are preferences. I understand all the rest of that. There's always going to be nations that are comprised of one ethnic group or another ethnic group, or people that identify themselves with that. All I'm trying to say is that when it comes to how we're treated by our government and how we treat one another, that we treat each other equally, regardless of what our tribal factions may be. I mean, listen, I'm Native American, Ukrainian, Swedish, and Italian. That's my lineage. Okay, I'm 6'3", close to 300 pounds. Me in a family photo, I stick out like a sore thumb because everybody else in my family's 5'1". You know, you get a line that goes like this. We all line up. You got this, and then this, and then that, and that again.
Right.
If I go to Sicily to go visit my ancestors, my tribal home in Sicily, where I still have cousins, not only am I going to look like the outcast because of my height,
Right.
they're all blonde haired and blue eyed. They're all blonde with blue eyes.
Yeah.
My Italian relatives are all blondes. You know, I wouldn't fit into that tribal thing. I mean, how would I be accepted even though I'm blood? I'm still going to be an outcast there. I know that if I go there, I'm going to be looked at, differently and stuff like that.
You'd be a
But I
novelty,
wouldn't.
Frank.
But I wouldn't want to be treated differently.
Right.
And that's the same thing here. I don't want to have anybody in this country being treated differently for better or for worse based on their ethnic origin. What I want in this country is when I see people that come up and they look at the stars and stripes flying on a pole, that they look up and they go, this is my country. These are my countrymen. These are my countrywomen. These are the people that are my family in this greater sense of blood. These are the people. Whether you were born here or you adopt this nation by choice, when you come here, you pledge an allegiance to us as a nation, as a fabric, and you make the fabric stronger. And we can't make the fabric stronger if we allow certain parts of the fabric to be treated weaker or stronger than others. We have to that fabric that holds us together can't have any weak parts. It all has to be strong. The only way you do that is by treating everybody equally. And I get people come up to the gun counter. I'm not selling guns. I'm not selling the guns sell themselves. I don't have to sell a gun. I don't have to. The guns sell themselves. All my job is to put the right gun in the right hand so people can protect themselves regardless of who they are.
Yeah.
I just want that. I just want them to be able to defend themselves and their family and to a greater extent their community. That's what I'm hoping to achieve by doing what I do. And it doesn't matter to me who the person is on the other end of the counter. Your life has got a value to it. Whether you think other people value you as much as you do or not doesn't matter. Your life is valuable.
Right.
You contribute something to this planet, and the best way to recognize it is for us to treat each other equally.
Yeah.
That's all. That's shit. I don't care. I mean, I just want people to get along. So why can't we all just get along? I'm like Rodney fucking King.
Yeah.
Except
Yeah, that's one
No.
way to say that.
Yep.
I mean, he was right in his sentiment. So
Yes.
No,
he
and
was.
that's
all right.
that's
Listen, Dal, I'm going to give you last thought because we got to wrap it up. We're a little overtime tonight.
a lot of overtime tonight, but it was a very good discussion, and we covered a lot of bases. But the main takeaway from tonight is when it comes to who we are as a people, and I'm speaking strictly as Americans at this point. Just remember, it's about the common denominator of the unalienable rights that are in all of us, and it only works if we do it together. Other than after that, the nation goes to pot, and it's no longer a nation. So we're in a very historic period right now. We're in a very tumultuous, certainly, very chaotic, but stay focused. Remember, it's always about liberty first principles. And if we can hold on to that, we can hold on to America and we can make ourselves great again.
Amen to that.
Yep, it works.
Vass, any closing thoughts? What's going on with you?
Lots of things are happening, and New York politics is heating up. It's petition season, but a lot of people are getting very active. It's a good sign.
Yep. I think that'll improve as the weather improves. So we'll see.
I can hope so. Usually it isn't, but I'll hope so.
All right, speaking of which, anybody who is interested, go to the Palmetto State Armory website. Every year, Palmetto State Armory has an open forum for the consumer where they can come in and try out different firearms, different manufacturers, and have a weekend of fun. This year, we are going to be covering, those are my dogs barking at a deer. This year, we're going to be covering the Palmetto State Armory, what they call the Gathering. It's March 21st and 22nd. Tickets are $30 for one day, I think $60 for the second day, but they have a package where it's $80 if you choose to go to both days. 2 8-hour days of fun in the sun with nothing but guns, explosives, and blowing shit up. If you find yourself in the North Carolina area and you want to attend, go to the PSA website and get yourself a couple of tickets. And when you're on the grounds over there, look for the big tall guy with the American flag t-shirt with the tall blonde walking around with him with a camera. That's going to be me. I'm going to be out there demoing a whole bunch of firearms. If you want to get on camera with us and have some fun, come on down. We'll shoot some skeet, blow some stuff up, and share some stories of freedom, because that's what America's about. So, yeah, PSA The Gathering. And if you can't go, at least check out the Range Report YouTube channel. We're going to have a whole bunch of video on all the new firearms that are coming out for this year. We're going to be out there doing that. And we don't know what happened to Mike Marshall. I heard he got home from work. I think he was just too pooped to pop. So
it happens sometimes.
Yep. Hey, we're all entitled. All right, guys, listen, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Really appreciate Vass and Dal. Thank you guys so much. And as always, you guys be safe and shoot straight. We'll catch you next week.